Chapter 311. Just like that, Yunruoyan fell into a deep sleep in Li Mo's arms. Her brows were furrowed, and her face was as beautiful as a lotus flower. Her lips were slightly swollen, but there was a faint smile on her lips. Li Mo planted a kiss on Yunruoyan's forehead, then gently removed his arm from her neck and got off the bed. Li Mo put on his outer robe and walked out of the room. He raised his hands, and white spiritual power gradually appeared on his hands. Then, the white spiritual power on both of his hands began to change at the same time. One hand was covered with red flames, and the other hand was covered with frost. "I've finally broken through." Li Mo clenched his fists tightly. He had finally broken through from peak 9th rank to the peak of the Sword Saint realm. Once he became a Sword Saint, he would be able to release his spiritual energy directly from his body in the form of elemental energy, and his elemental energy would be twice as strong as before. Yunruoyan's human furnace was indeed a great boon to his cultivation. "Sun Mo," Chocho's voice suddenly rang out in Li Mo's mind. Li Mo retracted his hands and returned to the room. He looked at Yunruoyan, who was still lying on the bed. The silver bracelet on her wrist was glowing faintly. "Chocho, it seems like you've recovered well." Li Mo asked Chocho through his mental energy. In the past, if Li Mo wanted to talk to Chocho, he would have to use his mental energy to break through the barrier. This time, however, Chocho was able to break through the barrier herself. "Mistress, I've been greatly helped by the Amaranthan Sun," Chocho replied. "Now that she's become an 8th rank Blade Master, she'll be of great help to me as well. Once she reaches the peak of the Sword Saint realm, I'll probably be able to break through the barrier and return to my original form. With Yen-Er's talent and my help, she'll be able to reach the peak of the Sword Saint realm in less than 10 years. So, Chocho, don't worry." "Li Mo, that's not why I'm talking to you," Chocho began. Chocho said, "I was just immersed in cultivation when I suddenly felt a huge fluctuation of spiritual energy in Master's body. Although this fluctuation won't harm her, I still find it very strange." "Can you tell me why?" Chocho was certain that Yunruoyan's spiritual fluctuations were due to Li Mo, but it didn't know the exact reason. As for Li Mo, he felt that there was no longer a need to hide it from Yunruoyan. He wanted to find an opportunity to tell her about it, but he seemed to be lacking a suitable opportunity. Just like tonight, Li Mo had wanted very much to tell Yunruoyan about this matter before he fully possessed her. However, Yunruoyan had mistakenly drunk the marriage wine, and Li Mo didn't have a chance to do so. "Chocho, I can tell you the reason, but don't tell your master right now." "I want to tell her myself," Li Mo said. Chocho agreed, and Li Mo told Chocho about Yunruoyan's human furnace. "I see." Chocho said, "I know what you're worried about. Although your intentions weren't pure at first, you're deeply in love with Master now, and Master can feel it. But with Master's personality, it's best if you confess to her as soon as possible to prevent any unforeseen events in the future." Li Mo nodded silently. He was determined to tell Yunruoyan about this matter before they left for the other dimension. Li Mo had originally planned to tell Yunruoyan about this the very next day, but early the next morning, he received a notification from the First Elder. The First Elder had informed Li Mo of something that was both surprising and exciting. After all, there weren't many things on the Qinyuan continent that could excite Li Mo. Li Mo told Yunruoyan about this matter, which Yunruoyan had heard from the other students of Kongming Academy about the sudden disappearance of the beast-taming hall. 3 years ago, Kongming Academy didn't have 3 halls and 5 colleges, but 4 halls and 5 colleges. One day, however, the elders discovered a new dimension through the all-seeing mirror, and this dimension was filled with a large number of magical beasts. To the beast-taming hall, this place was not only a good place for training, but also for treasure hunting. As a result, the executor of the beast-taming hall, with the approval of the elders, led his students and a few instructors into that nameless dimension. But at that moment, something strange happened. As soon as they entered the dimension, the connection between the dimension and the all-seeing mirror was suddenly severed. Just like that, the executor, instructors, and a large number of students of the beast-taming hall disappeared soundlessly into the vast expanse of the dimension. Now that the first elder had reported that the dimension had reappeared, and Kongming Academy was preparing to send people into it, the first elder asked Liamo if he was interested in taking a look. The executor of the beast-taming hall is quite close to me, Liamo replied. In the past 3 years, Master and I have been searching for it with the all-seeing mirror, and now that we've finally found it, I have to go in and take a look. All right, I'll go with you, Yun Ruoyan replied without hesitation. She had been quite curious when she'd heard her students talk about it, but she hadn't expected that she would have the opportunity to see it for herself. Now that Liamo was a sword saint, he was confident that he would be able to escape unscathed even from a different dimension, much less from this one. But this time, won't the dimension disappear again? Yun Ruoyan was still a little worried. They were too hasty last time, Liamo replied. This time, we have to be fully prepared. Because of the urgency of the situation, Liamo and Yun Ruoyan hurried back to Kongming Academy on the second day of their wedding, before the holidays had even ended. Before returning, Yun Ruoyan had her brother Ma Xiao head to Wu City to help the far-sighted king, Li Xing, eradicate the evildoers by his side. Yun Ruoyan had promised Li Xing that she would return in a month, but a month had passed in the blink of an eye. Since Yun Ruoyan couldn't make the trip herself, she could only entrust the task to her brother. All right, but I have a request, Yun Ma Xiao suddenly said. This surprised Yun Ruoyan a little. Ever since she was a child, this brother of hers had never made any requests of her. Yun Ruoyan smiled. Brother, what request do you have? Let me hear it. As a result, Yun Ma Xiao recounted to Yun Ruoyan how he had proposed to Li Luo in the carriage that night. Ever since that night, Li Luo had been avoiding him, so Yun Ma Xiao's request was for Li Luo to accompany him. This wasn't a difficult task for Yun Ruoyan. After all, Li Luo had always obeyed Li Mo's orders without hesitation. When she returned to Wu City, she informed Li Mo of the matter, and he immediately issued an order to Li Luo. However, Li Luo had a request: she wanted Su Nan to go with her. Otherwise, she wouldn't go even if she disobeyed orders. Yun Ruoyan had no choice but to have Li Mo agree. After all, it was difficult for an outsider to interfere in a relationship between a man and a woman, and Yun Ruoyan couldn't help but worry for her brother. After making all the necessary arrangements, Yun Ruoyan and Li Mo flew toward the Kongming Mountains. Li Mo, slow down. Wait for me. Yun Ruoyan followed closely behind Li Mo. Although she'd been practicing flying on her sword all this time, her sense of balance was far from perfect despite her impeccable talent. Li Mo had said that, given her cultivation speed, she would be able to fly on her sword in less than 10 days. But in the blink of an eye, almost a month had passed, and she was still only able to stand unsteadily on the Scarlet Eye sword. If Li Mo were by her side, she would be fine, but if he were even a little further away from her, Yun Ruoyan would tremble all over. You can't be too slow. Li Mo purposely distanced himself from Yun Ruoyan. The slower you go, the harder it is to maintain balance. That's why there's a saying that beginners have to ride fast. It's not a question of whether I'm a beginner or a veteran, Yun Ruoyan replied bitterly. The problem is that I'm afraid of heights. Li Mo's face darkened. He had flown with Yun Ruoyan so many times that he didn't know that she was afraid of heights. Forget it, come on up. Li Mo was finally defeated by Yun Ruoyan. He reached out to Yun Ruoyan, took her hand, and pulled her into his embrace. As a result, the two of them immediately sped up, and by noon, they arrived at Kongming Academy. The two of them flew directly to the top floor of the southern tower, where the first elder was waiting for them. Take a look. The three of them did not exchange any pleasantries. The great elder immediately opened the all-seeing mirror for the two of them to see. In the all-seeing mirror, Yun Ruoyan could only see a lush, green landscape, with blue skies and white clouds, lush trees, and birds flying by. It was as if she were in a paradise. First Elder, is this the dimension that disappeared? Yun Ruoyan asked curiously. Yes, it's here, the First Elder confirmed. The First Elder waved a hand at the all-seeing mirror, and the image of a valley appeared. There were many magical beasts in the valley, some of which Yun Ruoyan recognized, while others she didn't. The sheer number of beasts left Yun Ruoyan speechless. Master, have you found any traces of Master Qin and the others? Liamo asked the First Elder. The First Elder shook his head. No, but this dimension is very large, and there are many places that I haven't explored yet. There are also some places that seem to be protected by a barrier that even the all-seeing mirror can't penetrate. As such, I'll have to send someone in personally to investigate. First Elder, I'll go with Liamo, Yun Ruoyan replied. When do you plan to leave, and what preparations do I need to make before leaving? Chapter 312. She was worried that the space would suddenly disappear if she entered just like that. As a result, Yun Ruoyan asked the First Elder and Liamo what preparations they needed to make before entering the nameless dimension. The First Elder said that he was currently attempting to make a higher-grade teleportation scroll, and that he was almost done with it. Such a scroll would allow the two of them to return to the nameless dimension in an instant in case of an emergency. However, making such a scroll was extremely taxing on one's spiritual energy and required the support of a formation. As a result, apart from the First Elder, Yun Ruoyan also needed a sword saint to assist him. Of the remaining 4 elders, 2 were in seclusion, and 1 had yet to return from his travels. At the moment, only the second elder was at Kongming Academy. Just as the First Elder was about to invite him, Liamo spoke up. Master, let me help you. Both the First Elder and Yun Ruoyan looked toward Liamo, who raised his hands in front of them. One of his arms was glowing with a red flame, while the other was glowing with a blue ice crystal. Liamo, you've broken through to the Sword Saint realm? The First Elder asked excitedly. Yun Ruoyan's face lit up. She knew that Liamo's cultivation had been stuck at 9th rank for a long time, and she was naturally delighted that he had managed to break through. Liamo, when did you break through? I think you hadn't even broken through when you were dealing with Madame Qin at the tea house, right? Yun Ruoyan blurted out excitedly. I made the breakthrough last night, Liamo said, not hiding anything. I broke through last night. When did you break through last night? Yun Ruoyan was confused. They had spent the entire night together, so why didn't she know when Liamo had broken through? Could it be that he had broken through? Yun Ruoyan's eyes widened as she stared at Liamo, who smiled and nodded. After Yun Ruoyan recovered from her shock, she immediately blushed, glanced at the First Elder, and hurriedly changed the topic. How long will it take to make this teleportation scroll? Liamo hadn't told the First Elder that Yun Ruoyan was a furnace, but the First Elder had heard Empress Xue Tong mention it. As a result, the First Elder knew what was going on as soon as he heard their conversation. However, he pretended not to know anything and replied to Yun Ruoyan as naturally as possible. Originally, it would only take half a day, but just in case, I'm preparing to refine 4 spatial scrolls for you to use, so I'll need a full day. As a result, Liamo followed the First Elder to his training room, where the two of them, as peak blade masters, began to craft high-grade spatial scrolls. Because of the Great Elder's many years of research, the refining method summarized was not difficult to refine, but the requirements for spiritual power were very high. Yun Ruoyan stood to the side, watching as the two of them stood on opposite ends of a stone platform, their hands pushing against the scrolls on the platform and infusing spiritual energy into them. With the continuous infusion of a large amount of spiritual power, the scroll on the stone platform slowly began to have spiritual power, and the patterns on it gradually began to glow with spiritual power. By the time the sky was completely dark, the 2 spatial scrolls were finally completed. After a short rest, Liemo and the first elder began to craft the other 2 spatial scrolls. As a 9th-rank blade master, one would be able to slowly enter a state of anedia, so Liemo and the first elder didn't need food. However, Yunruoyan didn't. When the sky darkened, she left the southern tower in search of food. Because it was the holidays, there weren't many students at Kongming Academy, and the cafeteria wasn't open. Yunruoyan saw that there was no one in the cafeteria, and just as she was worrying about how to fill her stomach, she saw a figure walking toward her. As the figure drew closer, Yunruoyan recognized who it was. Shuifeng, what are you doing here? Yunruoyan asked in surprise. Wasn't he supposed to be at the Lin Manor with Zhuolin? I didn't have much to do at the Lin Manor, so I came back to cultivate. It's quiet here, and there's plenty of spiritual energy, Zhuorifeng replied coolly. In the darkness of the night, Yunruoyan couldn't see Zhuorifeng's face clearly, but she felt that he seemed much thinner and taller than when she'd first met him. The last time Yunruoyan had seen Zhuorifeng was not long after her engagement to Liemo. At that time, Kongming Academy had just started its holidays, and it had been almost a month since then. That day, she had gone to the Lin Manor early in the morning to play. Lin Qingchen had told her that Lin Qingxue was practicing archery with Zhuorifeng in the pavilion. Remembering that she had promised Lin Qingxue that she would give her a good bow once she was done with archery, Yunruoyan dragged Lin Qingchen along. As soon as the 2 of them entered the pavilion, they saw Zhuorifeng holding Lin Qingxue in his arms, his large hand holding her small hand. The 2 of them were drawing a bow together. Lin Qingxue's round face was bright red, and she was smiling sweetly. Zhuorifeng was expressionless, but his body was pressed tightly against Lin Qingxue's. In the past, Zhuorifeng would often correct Lin Qingxue's shooting posture in this manner, but he had only done so in the past. At that time, Lin Qingchen's expression had changed. She had wanted to step forward, but Yunruoyan had stopped her. After that, Lin Qingchen's face remained cold the entire time, but Zhuorifeng acted as if nothing had happened. Only Lin Qingxue was foolishly immersed in her happiness. From that day onwards, Yunruoyan saw Zhuorifeng twice more. Each time, he was with Lin Qingxue, and the 2 of them were indeed much closer than before. Lin Qingchen was quite worried about this, and Yunruoyan comforted her that it was a good thing for Lin Qingxue to be with someone she liked, and that Zhuorifeng was someone worth trusting. However, Lin Qingchen said that Zhuorifeng didn't like Lin Qingxue at all, which was why she was worried. Yunruoyan had long known that Lin Qingxue liked Zhuorifeng, but she couldn't tell whether or not Zhuorifeng actually liked Lin Qingxue. However, based on her understanding of Zhuorifeng, if he didn't like Lin Qingxue, he wouldn't be so intimate with her. That was how she comforted Lin Qingchen. However, after hearing her words, Lin Qingchen hesitantly asked her a question. Sister Ruoyan, I've always felt that Brother Zhua has someone he likes, but that person isn't Qingxue. Sister Ruoyan, do you feel that way? Lin Qingchen asked. Yun Ruoyan paused. She really hadn't felt that Zhuorifeng had been so serious ever since she'd met him. Most of the time, Yun Ruoyan didn't know what he was thinking. Strangely, Yun Ruoyan didn't try to guess Zhuorifeng's interests or thoughts. She simply felt that he was a friend worth befriending. If he likes someone, who else could it be if it's not Qingxue? Yun Ruoyan frowned. Lin Qingchen looked at Yun Ruoyan, frowning as well. After a long while, she finally replied, I don't know either. On the other hand, Yun Ruoyan took this matter to heart. When she had the chance, she had even asked Zhuolin if Zhuorifeng had liked any girls before they'd gotten to know each other. Zhuolin said that he had, but she hadn't seen her brother like anyone. As a result, Yun Ruoyan had been looking for an opportunity to have a good chat with Zhuorifeng. As Lin Qingxue's sister, Yun Ruoyan felt that it was her duty to clarify things for Lin Qingxue. And today was clearly a good opportunity for her to do so. Shui Feng, I have something I want to talk to you about, Yun Ruoyan said. Let's find a place to talk. As Yun Ruoyan spoke, her stomach began to rumble, and Yun Ruoyan subconsciously placed her hand on it, rubbing it comfortingly. Shui Feng's lips curled up involuntarily as he looked at her. Because of the misty darkness of the night, his smile grew larger and larger. Are you hungry? Shui Feng smiled. Yes, I'm starving. The slaughtering king isn't even giving you a proper meal. He's busy right now. Come with me, I'll fill your stomach first, Shui Feng said. Yun Ruoyan followed Shui Feng toward the western cliffs. As they walked, Shui Feng asked Yun Ruoyan why she and Liemo had come to the Kongming Mountains at this time. Shui Feng knew that the two of them were newlyweds, so he was quite surprised to see Yun Ruoyan here. Yun Ruoyan didn't think that Shui Feng was an outsider, and the appearance of an alternate dimension wasn't much of a secret, so she told him about it. Chapter 313. Yun Ruoyan looked at Shui Feng. He seemed different from before, but upon closer inspection, apart from being taller and thinner, there didn't seem to be any other obvious changes. Do you know that Qingxue likes you? Yun Ruoyan asked. Yes, Shui Feng replied as he added more wood to the dying fire. Then do you like her? Yun Ruoyan asked. Yes, Shui Feng answered without hesitation. Oh. When Yun Ruoyan heard Shui Feng's reply, she couldn't help but sigh in relief, as if a heavy weight had been lifted from her shoulders. That's good, then. Shui Feng continued, my sister and I aren't related at all, and it's only thanks to the Lin family that we've been together. Qingxue and Qingchen treat us like family, and I'll treat them like family, like a sister. Yun Ruoyan exhaled. That's not what I meant by like. I meant the kind of liking a man feels for a woman. How could you not understand? I really don't understand. Shui Feng prodded at the burning coals, the light from the fire illuminating his beast-like eyes, obscuring his true emotions. Yun Ruoyan began to panic. Shui Feng, let me tell you, Qingxue is sincere toward you, and we can all see that. If you like her, you have to treat her well, and if you don't, you have to stay away from her. Yun Ruoyan stared at Shui Feng, waiting for his reply. Only after a long while did Shui Feng finally speak up. I can't promise you that. Why? Yun Ruoyan asked. Because Qingxue confessed to me, and I rejected her. She said that as long as I didn't hate her, she wouldn't give up, and that whether or not I liked her, I'd give her a chance, Shui Feng replied coolly. She said that she'd use her sincerity to move me. What? Yun Ruoyan was both shocked and helpless. She actually confessed to you, and even said such a thing. What a silly girl. She is indeed a silly girl. Shui Feng's lips curled up in a smile, and when Yun Ruoyan saw his smile, she felt strangely uncomfortable. Shui Feng, no matter what, you can't hurt Qingxue. She's my sister, and if you dare hurt her, I won't go easy on you. That's not something I can guarantee. Shui Feng looked toward Yun Ruoyan, his tone serious. The reason I left the Lin family so early to come to the academy was because I wanted to distance myself from Qingxue and calm her down. But in a few days, Qingxue will come back again. What do you think I should do? Shui Feng met Yun Ruoyan's gaze, a faint smile in his beastly eyes. Yun Ruoyan stood up with a whoosh. I don't care. If you hurt Qingxue, I won't go easy on you. She turned to leave, but Shui Feng spoke up from behind her. Why don't I go with you to the alternate dimension? Qingxue hasn't seen me for a long time, and perhaps she'll calm down. Yun Ruoyan paused and turned back to look at Shui Feng. I can't make this decision on my own. I'll have to get the First Elder's approval. Wait for my news. After Yun Ruoyan left, Shui Feng sat back down by the fire. A black-clothed figure appeared soundlessly by his side. Feng took a flask of wine from his waist and handed it to the black-clothed figure. You gave my dish to someone else. The black-clothed figure took the flask and took a sip. Feng used the stick in his hand to pull at the fire with all his might. With a crack, the stick in his hand broke into 2 pieces. He threw the broken piece into the fire with all his might. Master. Feng turned his head to look at the black-clothed man and said, if there is something that you love very much, but not only are you unable to obtain it, you also have to watch helplessly as it is taken by your enemy. What would you do? The black-clothed figure hesitated for a long time before replying, if it's just something, of course I'd try my best to get it back. But if it's a person, and her heart isn't with you, what's the point of taking her away? Feng's bright eyes dimmed as he listened to the black-clothed figure's words. I'm useless, master, I'm really useless. Feng hung his head, his voice sad. I fell in love with a woman, from the first time I saw her, but I never dared to show even a trace of my feelings in front of her. She's so beautiful, so noble, and in front of her, I'm as insignificant as dust. Master, I feel like a pitiful worm right now. The black-clothed figure patted Feng's shoulder and handed him the flask of wine. Feng took it and took a large gulp. The black-clothed figure sighed. In front of love, everyone is insignificant. Just like that girl called Lin Qingyu you were talking about, isn't she the same in front of you? If the child is yours, it'll always be yours. If it's not, no matter how much you worry about it, it'll be useless. Feng smiled bitterly and drank half of the flask of wine in one go. His head felt a little dizzy, and he clutched his head and laughed bitterly. Master, tell me, what's mine? What's not mine? I wanted revenge, but I found that my enemy was so strong that I couldn't catch up to him even if I spent the rest of my life. The woman I loved married my enemy before I even had the courage to confess my feelings for her. Master, tell me, what's mine in this world, and what's not? I can't accept this, I can't. As Feng spoke, his head gradually leaned against the black-clothed figure's shoulder, and he fell into a deep sleep. The black-clothed figure sighed, took the flask of wine from Feng's hand, and drank the last mouthful. By the time Yun Ruoyan returned to the southern tower, Li Mo and the first elder were still forging spatial scrolls, and it was likely that the day after they were done, the sun would rise. When Li Mo saw Yun Ruoyan sitting by the side in a daze, he thought that she was tired, and told her to get some rest. Yun Ruoyan decided that it wouldn't be too late to tell them about Feng the next day. As soon as Yun Ruoyan left, a black figure entered the southern tower. Both the first elder and Li Mo stopped their cultivation at the same time and looked at the black-clothed figure. The man in black took off the hood that covered his face, revealing a resolute face with a scar on it. Su Nan. Li Mo looked at the man. Did something happen to mother for you to come here at this hour? Everything's fine with the Empress, Su Nan replied. I'm here to ask for a favor on behalf of my son, Feng. The next day, when Yun Ruoyan woke up, Li Mo and the first elder had already finished forging the 4 spatial scrolls. Li Mo, there's something I need to tell you. Yun Ruoyan wrung out a clean, wet towel and handed it to Li Mo. Li Mo took the towel and began to wash his face. I saw Feng at the academy yesterday. Yun Ruoyan told Li Mo everything that had happened between Feng and Lin Qingxue. I'd like Feng to enter the nameless dimension with us. Otherwise, I'd be worried if I didn't stay here to look after Qingxue. Sure, let's bring him along. Li Mo agreed readily. In any case, we've already forged 4 spatial scrolls, so there's more than enough to go around. At noon, Li Mo, Yun Ruoyan, and Feng stood in front of the all-seeing mirror. I'm going to activate the all-seeing mirror's teleportation function. After you enter, you might appear in midair, so make sure to land safely on your swords, the first elder reminded them. The all-seeing mirror had a teleportation function, but the number of people it could teleport was limited. Moreover, because there was no teleportation array on the ground, those who were teleported would appear in midair rather than on the ground. As a result, if a large number of students were to be teleported from the academy to the trial, they would still use a teleportation array that had been set up in advance. Yun Ruoyan felt a blinding white light envelop her, and she closed her eyes. Then, a gust of wind suddenly blew, causing her hair and clothes to flutter, and her entire body became weightless. In the process of falling, Yun Ruoyan felt two hands simultaneously grab her left and right hands, slowing her descent. The white light disappeared, and when Yun Ruoyan opened her eyes, she found herself surrounded by misty white clouds. Liamo! Yun Ruoyan called out loudly, but her voice was blown back into her mouth by the strong wind. She turned her head with great difficulty, only to see Liamo and Zhuorifeng holding onto her left and right. The moment the three of them passed through the clouds, the fog in front of Yun Ruoyan cleared, revealing a vast expanse of emerald green below. Liamo and Zhuorifeng both summoned green swords beneath their feet, and the three of them stopped their descent. Liamo wrapped his arm around Yun Ruoyan's waist, and Zhuorifeng let go, allowing Yun Ruoyan to fall into Liamo's embrace. I didn't expect this place to be even more beautiful than the all-seeing mirror. Yun Ruoyan looked down from Liamo's arms. The verdant canopy of the trees seemed to connect the heavens and the earth. The sky was clear, and the clouds were as thin as silk. It was truly a paradise. The spiritual energy here is also much denser than on the Qinyuan continent, Liamo's voice rang out by Yun Ruoyan's ear. Upon hearing Liamo's words, Zhuorifeng and Yun Ruoyan both activated a spiritual gathering technique. Indeed, the spiritual energy here seemed to be twice as dense as on the Qinyuan continent. Let's find a place to settle down first, Zhuorifeng said, before flying down on his sword. Liamo and Yun Ruoyan followed closely behind. The three of them flew along the treetops for about 15 minutes before Yun Ruoyan finally saw a glistening spot not far from where they were. There's a lake over there. Let's head over, Liamo said, and the three of them began flying toward the lake. However, just as the three of them were flying, a sudden change occurred. The clear blue sky suddenly darkened, and a gust of wind blew countless leaves from the canopy, sending them flying toward Yun Ruoyan's group like daggers. Chapter 3:14. Countless green leaves rained down on the three of them like a rain of daggers, but the three of them each had a spiritual barrier protecting them from the onslaught as they flew toward the lake. Liamo was a peak blade master, and his barrier was even more resilient than Yun Ruoyan's and Zhuorifeng's. Most of the green leaves bounced off it. As for Yun Ruoyan and Zhuorifeng, their spiritual barrier began to crack under the relentless assault of the green leaves. Seeing this, Liamo hurriedly hid Yun Ruoyan within his robes. Zhuorifeng, catch! Yun Ruoyan reached out from Liamo's robes and tossed her dark steel dagger to Zhuorifeng. Just then, a green leaf shot over and scratched Yun Ruoyan's outstretched hand, leaving a bloody gash on it. Zhuorifeng took the dagger from Liamo. As he struck the green leaves that were attacking him, he urged the sword under his feet with all his might and followed Liamo toward the lake. The three of them finally left the attack range of the green leaves and landed on the surface of the lake. The three of them landed by the lake, and Yun Ruoyan emerged from Liamo's robes. Is your hand all right? Zhuorifeng walked up and handed the dagger back to Yun Ruoyan. Oh, it's nothing. Just a small scratch. As Yun Ruoyan took the dagger back, she glanced at the back of her hand. There was a cut on it, and a trickle of blood was dripping down. You're bleeding. Zhuorifeng frowned as he took out some gauze from his storage pouch to bandage Yun Ruoyan's wound. Suddenly, Liamo walked over and took out a handkerchief he always carried with him. Give me your hand. Liamo's expression didn't look too good. Yun Ruoyan obediently stretched out her hand in front of him and allowed him to bandage her wound. Why would these green leaves suddenly attack us? Yun Ruoyan looked at Li Mo curiously. Her movements were nimble, and she was protected by her own barrier of spiritual energy. She hadn't expected the green leaves to cut the back of her hand, and it was clear how powerful they were. Could it be that someone's controlling it from behind the scenes? Shui Yifeng asked. Both he and Yun Ruoyan couldn't help looking around. It could also be a unique phenomenon of this space. Different dimensions tend to have different environments, so we have to be careful. As an instructor who often led his students into the trial grounds, Li Mo was quite familiar with alternate dimensions. Shui Yifeng and Yun Ruoyan had entered the trial grounds twice before, and this was only their third time. The first time was in a desert oasis, and the second time was in a forest of giant trees. The environments of the two trial grounds were very different. This time, the three of them arrived at a beautiful fairyland-like scenery. However, behind this beautiful scenery, there were countless dangers waiting for them. After Li Mo finished bandaging Yun Ruoyan's wounds, the three of them walked along the lakeshore for about 15 minutes before discovering that the lake extended into a valley. In the valley, the three of them could see a small cottage by the lakeshore. The three of them were overjoyed to see the cottage. Apart from the beast-taming students who had been here 3 years ago, there couldn't be anyone else in such a remote place. The three of them quickened their steps toward the cottage, but it was only when they arrived that they realized that it was an abandoned house. There were even some household utensils in the cottage, indicating that someone had lived here for a long time. However, all the utensils were covered in a thick layer of dust, indicating that the owner had been gone for a long time. A woman used to live here, Li Mo said as he brushed away the dust on the table. How did you know? What did you discover? Yun Ruoyan looked at him. Li Mo pointed to a wooden comb by her hand. This is a comb that women use to comb their hair. Yun Ruoyan walked over and saw that it was indeed a comb, with a peach blossom carved on it. A husband and wife lived here, right? Shui Yifeng asked from the corner of the room. Yun Ruoyan and Li Mo looked at him. Shui Yifeng pointed to a wooden cradle by the corner of the room. This is an infant's cradle, and it's only half finished. Were there any married couples among the students who came with you? Yun Ruoyan asked Li Mo. Li Mo shook his head. No, but there were male and female students. It's not impossible that they got married later on. But where did they go now? Yun Ruoyan looked at the half-finished cradle. Shui Yifeng and Li Mo shook their heads, unable to answer that question. The furnishings here are clean and tidy, and the cradle is only half-finished. Although they left in a hurry, they probably left of their own volition, Shui Yifeng continued. Not necessarily, Li Mo replied. It's possible that they were forced to leave before they even had a chance to enter the house. The three of them didn't find anything of value in the house, so they walked out. Instead of lingering by the lake, they headed into the nearby forest to investigate the situation. Perhaps it was due to the abundance of spiritual energy here, but the vegetation here was extremely lush and verdant, even taller and more luxuriant than on the Qinyuan continent. However, the three of them had experienced the giant forest in the past, so they were no longer surprised by the tall trees in front of them. In the forest, the three of them walked for about the time it takes for a stick of incense to burn. Suddenly, there was a commotion in the forest in front of them. Dozens of rabbits, pheasants, and a few other small animals that Yun Ruoyan couldn't name came running over. Mistress, there's a magical beast up ahead, Qiu reported in Yun Ruoyan's mind. Yun Ruoyan nodded. She had also sensed the aura of magical beasts, and a large number of them at that. However, based on their auras, these beasts should be low-rank beasts that weren't very lethal. The three of them didn't stop, continuing in their original direction. Not long after, an even louder commotion could be heard from up ahead. The first thing Yun Ruoyan saw were 7 or 8 red dog-like beasts sprinting toward them from the forest ahead. Hounds, Shui Yifeng remarked. As he spoke, he unslung his bow from his back, knocked an arrow, and fired at the hounds in front of them. The powerful arrow pierced through the body of the fierce mane hound after killing it, and landed on the head of the fierce mane hound behind it. That hound let out a pained howl before collapsing to the ground. The hounds that had been running were so startled by this sudden attack that they stopped in their tracks. However, more and more hounds began to run up from behind, forcing those that had stopped in front of them to charge toward Yunruoyan's group once more. What's going on? Is it a stampede of beasts? The three of them leaped up a large tree and watched in shock as nearly 1,000 hounds ran past them. Although the hounds weren't high-ranked beasts, it was still rare to see such a large number of them. Normally, there would only be thousands of magical beasts in a beast tide, and they were all made up of different magical beasts. But now, there were thousands of fierce maned hounds. Surely they can't be the only beasts here, can they? Yunruoyan asked. That day in the all-seeing mirror, there were many different species of beasts. This place is indeed different, Liemo said. Let's continue forward. By this time, nearly 1,000 hounds had passed by them. Holding Yunruoyan's hand, Liemo jumped down from the tree, and the three of them continued forward. What the three of them didn't expect was that another batch of red-eyed wolves, if not 1,000, then a few hundred. These red-eyed wolves were of a higher level than the fierce maned hounds. Some of the red-eyed werewolves weren't as observant as the whole-maned hounds. When the main group left, nearly 30 red-eyed werewolves surrounded the tree that the three of them were standing on. Evidently, they were treating the three of them as prey. The red-eyed wolves weren't high-ranked beasts, but Chocho had said that their beast cores contained fire-attuned spiritual energy, and that they could be refined into a fiery pill that could speed up one's cultivation. As a result, Yunruoyan decided to kill a few of them. It's been a long time since I've hunted beasts, so let's get some practice today. Yunruoyan bade farewell to Liemo and Zhuifeng before jumping down from the tree, dagger in hand. As soon as the 30 red-eyed wolves saw Yunruoyan jump down from the tree, they pounced on her without hesitation, and Yunruoyan's spiritual barrier immediately began to seep out of her body. Although the red-eyed wolves had sharp claws and sharp fangs, their cultivation was too low, and they couldn't break through Yunruoyan's 8th-ranked Blademaster's barrier. Relying on the barrier's protection, Yunruoyan didn't need to defend herself at all. She raised the dagger in her hand and stabbed at the red-eyed wolves by her side, one at a time, each stab aimed at a vital point. In a short while, she had killed more than 10 red-eyed wolves. Only then did the remaining wolves realize that these beasts weren't food for them to hunt, but hard bones that they couldn't even chew on. The remaining dozen or so demon wolves gave up on attacking, turned around and chased after the large group. Yunruoyan was enjoying her hunt to her heart's content. Because of the spiritual barrier's protection, there wasn't a single trace of blood on her body. With Liemo and Zhuifeng's help, the red-eyed wolves' beast cores were quickly extracted. By this time, the sky had already darkened, and the three of them were preparing to return to the lakeside to rest for the night. Just as they were about to leave, an even louder sound came from behind them. Awo! The beast's roars came from ahead like a flash flood. Mistress, there's a pack of high-ranked beasts up ahead, Chocho reported. Yunruoyan, Liemo, and Zhuifeng glanced at each other, the same question in their minds: what's going on? Could it be that this was a magical beast taming ground? Is there no end to this? Chapter 3:15. Before the three of them had much time to react, another group of beasts appeared in the forest in front of them. These beasts were large and covered in tiger pelts, and there was a large, Wang character on their heads. They looked like giant tigers, but they had 2 fangs protruding from their mouths. These were the saber-toothed tigers that Yunruoyan had slain before. The saber-toothed tigers were high-ranked beasts, and their attacks were many times stronger than those of the fiery-maned hounds and red-eyed wolves. None of the 3 dared to take them lightly, and they all leapt up into the trees. There were more than 200 saber-toothed tigers in this group, and each one of them was enormous in size. As a result, even though the trees in the 3 forests were tall, many of the trees were still broken by their fangs. As Shui Feng looked at the fangs of the saber-toothed tigers, an idea popped up in his mind. He only had less than 10 tiger canine arrowheads left in his quiver. Although they could be recycled and reused, he had still expended quite a few of them in battle. Of the 30 that Yun Ruoyan had gifted him, there were now only 10 left. Shui Feng wouldn't bear to use these 10 arrowheads unless absolutely necessary, but the saber-toothed tiger's fangs were extremely valuable, and they were almost priceless in the capital. He hadn't expected them to be everywhere in the forest, and if he didn't make a move now, he wouldn't have such a good opportunity in the future. Shui Feng thought excitedly, this time, I have to get 8 or 10 fangs and forge them into a few hundred arrowheads. Although that was what Shui Feng was thinking, he wasn't in a hurry to act rashly. Given the 3 of them's strength, even 10 such high-rank beasts wouldn't be a problem. But now, there were nearly 200 of them. If these 200 saber-toothed tigers were to be provoked, it would be no laughing matter. Thus, Shui Feng quietly waited. When the 200 magical beasts were almost gone, Shui Feng pulled out an arrow with a tiger-tooth arrowhead from the quiver on his back. He aimed it at one of the saber-toothed tigers and shot it, piercing its head with a single strike. The saber-toothed tiger howled. Although it didn't die, it collapsed to the ground, unable to get up. Shui Feng was about to shoot a second tiger when Liemo stopped him. What's wrong? High-rank beasts like saber-toothed tigers are extremely loyal to their companions. Under normal circumstances, you'll only hunt them when they're alone, Liemo explained. If you hunt them like this, they'll take revenge. Although Shui Feng was good at hunting, he didn't know much about high-level magical beasts. This was the first time he heard of such a thing. Indeed, as soon as Liemo finished speaking, the saber-toothed tigers behind him stopped in their tracks and surrounded the injured tiger. One of the larger saber-toothed tigers raised its huge head, its 2 golden tiger eyes looking at the tree that everyone was hiding in. Shui Feng once again knocked an arrow and aimed it at the saber-toothed tiger. Liemo reached out and pressed down on the arrow. Then, Liemo looked at the tiger's golden eyes and stretched out his hand to draw a complicated pattern in its direction that Yun Ruoyan couldn't understand. The diagram emitted a scarlet glow of spiritual energy as it floated in midair. When the saber-toothed tiger saw the scarlet diagram, its eyes narrowed, and it lowered its huge head in Liemo's direction. Then, it led the other saber-toothed tigers away, leaving the injured one behind. Only when the large group of saber-toothed tigers had left did the 3 of them jump down from the tree and stand in front of the injured tiger. Liemo, what did you do? Why did they suddenly leave? Yun Ruoyan asked curiously. I drew a Beastmaster contract formation, Liemo explained. Then, I infused the formation with spiritual energy from a sword saint, and the saber-toothed tigers left in fear. If Liemo hadn't mentioned it, Yun Ruoyan would have almost forgotten that he was a Beastmaster as well. The first time Yun Ruoyan had seen Liemo form a contract with a beast was when he had tamed the soul-stealing bird, Mo, in the forest of giant trees. This was the second time she had seen Liemo display his abilities as a Beastmaster. If only Mo had come along, Yun Ruoyan murmured. Mo's demonic voice was particularly effective against magical beasts. However, ever since Mo had been brought out of the forest by the 2 of them, she hadn't seen it at all. It was almost as if it had been released into the wild. Liemo's cultivation was high, and he usually didn't need its help. As a result, he had almost completely forgotten about it. Given Mo's current cultivation, it won't be easy for him to deal with a high-level beast like the saber-toothed tiger, Liemo said. As he spoke, he stretched out his hand, and a green sword aura appeared in it. The green sword aura grew another half a foot in his hand, and Liemo stabbed the saber-toothed tiger's heart, ending its pain. Shui Feng's sword also appeared in his hand, and he used it to remove the 2 tiger canine arrowheads and place them in his storage pouch. After doing all this, the 3 of them began to walk back. The path back had been trampled by a horde of magical beasts, and the trees were toppled over. Once a horde of magical beasts formed, their destructive power couldn't be underestimated. Where do you think these beasts came from, and where are they headed? Zhuai Feng asked as they hurried along. Yun Ruoyan didn't know, and she looked toward Liemo, waiting for his answer. I don't know. We'll come back tomorrow. Yun Ruoyan and Zhuai Feng brought enough water for them to drink, and then the three of them set off once more into the forest. Today, they didn't encounter any beasts, but they did encounter quite a few beasts of various sizes. Given their cultivation, as long as the beasts weren't sage-ranked, they wouldn't be a problem. Liemo was rather worried. If the beast masters had encountered such a beast tide 3 years ago, there would have been many casualties. Someone's here. Just as the three of them were walking, Liemo suddenly sensed someone's aura approaching, and the three of them stopped. Yun Ruoyan and Zhuai Feng also sensed the aura of more than one person. Suddenly, an arrow flew toward Liemo's head. Liemo reached out and caught the arrow in his hand. The arrowhead was made of dark steel, and it turned out to be a specialized arrow from the Beastmaster Academy. Before Liemo could speak, another volley of arrows flew toward them. Liemo didn't move, instead standing in front of Yun Ruoyan and Zhuai Feng. The spiritual barrier around his body deflected most of the arrows, and the remaining ones didn't do much damage to Yun Ruoyan and Zhuai Feng. Are you from the Beastmaster Academy? I'm Liemo. Qin Feng, is Master Qin here? Liemo called out loudly, his voice imbued with spiritual energy, and the entire forest reverberated with his voice. The arrows that were flying over all stopped at this moment. Before anyone could be seen, a deep male voice rang out. Liemo. I'm Qin Feng. A tall, burly man dressed in beast skin walked out of the forest, followed by a dozen or so men and women. Master Mo, it's really Master Mo, one of the youths exclaimed as soon as he saw Liemo. Ah, thank goodness. Someone from Kongming Academy has finally come to save us. I thought I'd never be able to return home, sob. When these youths saw Liemo, Yun Ruoyan, and the others, they were all extremely emotional, and some of the girls even started crying uncontrollably. Qin Feng walked up to Liemo and suddenly threw his head back and laughed heartily. It's been 3 years, Liemo, the tall, burly man looked at Liemo with tears in his eyes. I've brought these students to this damned place for 3 years, and you're finally here. After a brief conversation, Liemo followed Qin Feng and the other Beastmaster students to their temporary lodgings. It was a very simple cave, with only a few pieces of beast skin, a few simple weapons, and a few campfires. Yun Ruoyan and the others were all very surprised. In such a beautiful and resourceful place, how could a group of cultivators be living in such dire straits? The cave was rather dark, and as soon as they entered, a dozen or so people surrounded Yun Ruoyan's group and began asking questions at once. How's Kongming Academy? Are the others from the Beastmaster Academy doing well? Master Mo, how are our parents? Master Mo, we'd like to go back now. When are you going to take us back? One of the students asked. Kongming Academy's all-seeing mirror allows us to see a valley here, and it's where the spiritual energy is the most abundant. We need to find it and get in touch with the first elder from there. Isn't the spiritual beast valley the one with the most abundant spiritual energy? One of the female students asked. As soon as the female student mentioned the valley, everyone's expression darkened. What's the matter? Is there something wrong with the valley? Yun Ruoyan asked. The valley is a very special place, and we don't even dare to go near it, Master Qin replied. What's special about it? Yun Ruoyan and Zhuai Feng asked simultaneously. The group of students all revealed expressions of lingering fear. Finally, Master Qin began, there's a cave there, but we don't know where it leads to, but from time to time, things will come out of it. Things? What things? Yun Ruoyan asked curiously. Sometimes, it's a large group of beasts, like the horde from yesterday. These beasts usually wander around aimlessly, leaving a mess wherever they go, one of the students explained. Sometimes, it's people from a different dimension, the female student explained. The female student continued to explain with a trembling voice, their cultivations are very high. They came here to hunt magical beasts. But if they see us, the men will be killed without mercy, and the women will be taken away. Chapter 3:16. Yun Ruoyan, Zhuori Feng, and Li Mo were all stunned by the explanations of the students and Master Qin. There was actually a cave here that could connect to another world. Qin Feng, what exactly happened after you arrived here 3 years ago? Li Mo's gaze swept over the surrounding students. I remember very clearly that when the first elder and I brought you in 3 years ago, there were 33 of you. Now, there are only 16 of you left. Have the rest been killed? Qin Feng sighed, slowly recounting the events of the past 3 years to Li Mo. Back then, Qin Feng had brought a total of 33 students and instructors from the beast-taming hall through a formation set up by the all-seeing mirror. However, as soon as they entered, they encountered a horde of high-rank beasts at that. Although the cultivation of these 33 people was not low, in a situation where they were completely unprepared, they could not withstand a single blow from the high-grade demonic beasts. The 33 people were quickly scattered by the demonic beasts. I brought 7 people to search for the scattered students. After 3 days, we were only able to find 11 people. The rest of the students went missing during the attack of the demonic beasts. Even now, we don't know if they are alive or dead. Qin Feng said in a low voice. One of those magical beasts was a bloodthirsty demon lion. I saw a senior sister get swallowed by one of them, and the rest of the juniors were likely in their stomachs as well, a skinny, muscular youth said. A skinny, muscular youth called out. Yun Ruoyan had heard the others call him Tian. I didn't expect to encounter such danger as soon as I entered, nor did I expect to see so many missing students. As a result, I gave up on the idea of hunting the beasts. All I wanted to do was find the missing students and return to the academy, Qin Feng continued. Qin Feng continued, but 5 days later, when we returned to the formation according to the original time, we discovered that the formation had disappeared. We had completely lost contact with the academy. At that time, Qin Feng and his students had tried all sorts of methods to contact the academy, but all of them had failed. In the end, they had given up all hope. Apart from the despair of not being able to contact the academy, they soon discovered that this seemingly beautiful space was actually filled with unimaginable dangers. Beasts would appear from time to time, as well as strange winds that would suddenly appear, as well as ferocious beasts that would devour humans. What was even more frightening was that one day, they actually met people from another world in a valley. At first, we were very happy to see them, thinking that they were people from the Qinyuan continent. We thought that we could go home with them, but when they found out about our current situation, they immediately turned violent, said a female student called Haiyan. Out of our 3 instructors, 2 of the male instructors were killed on the spot, and the female instructor was kidnapped by them. They said that they would bring her back to a place called the Darkest Land to be sold, Tian said. At this point, there was a short period of silence in the cave. This was something that the surviving students did not want to recall. They needed time to calm their pain and fear. In that case, how did you escape from them? Yun Ruoyan asked after a short while. Didn't we escape? Qin Feng replied, these people are extremely cruel and vicious, they feel that killing us like this is too boring, so they want to play a game with us. Every time someone is chosen to play with them, the loser will be killed. All 7 of my instructors were killed in the game, and I'm the only one who survived. What kind of game? Yun Ruoyan and Zhuori Feng asked almost at the same time. Yun Ruoyan clenched her hands tightly. Because she was so angry, her hands had turned red. Shui Yifeng also gripped his bow tightly. Qin Feng said that this game was called the Gopher's Game by the people from the other dimension. They believed that they were of a higher status than the people from the Qinyuan continent, so they called themselves Gophers. The so-called Gopher's Game was to divide up a region and have one of Qin Feng's students enter that region as prey, while the people from the other dimension would enter to hunt. It would last for 3 days. Within these 3 days, if the prey could successfully hide without being discovered and not be eaten by the magical beasts in this area, then the winner would be the winner. I was the first to play this game, Qin Feng said. Qin Feng said, I almost died inside. In the end, I was lucky enough to escape, but my instructors were not as lucky as me. When Qin Feng mentioned this game, the faces of the 10 or so students all turned pale. Of the 7 instructors, the last had been killed in the previous game, and the remaining students would have to take over. If even the instructors didn't survive, we'd be going to our deaths, one student said. Not necessarily, Ah Tian consoled. Ah Tian comforted everyone, saying, I remember the last game was 3 months ago, maybe those demons from the other world have already forgotten about us. If we can return to the Qinyuan continent before those demons arrive, we'll be saved. That's right, there's hope for us to return now. I don't have to play that damned game anymore, and we don't have to die. That's great. Ah Tian's words had indeed saved everyone from their fear. But the Valley of Spiritual Beasts isn't a good place to go. Qin Feng's face was still full of worry. Those demons forbid us from entering, and they've set up a special barrier there. If we barge in, they'll know immediately. Do we have to go to the valley to set up a teleportation array? Can't we do it elsewhere? Qin Feng asked. Liamo knew that Qin Feng wasn't a timid person, but the fact that he was so nervous was enough to show just how frightening those demons were. But the more he thought about it, the more he wanted to go and see for himself. Yun Ruoyan and Shui Yifeng shared Limo's sentiments. Since they were here to face all sorts of dangers, and if they wanted to return, the Valley of Spiritual Beasts was the only way out. In another half a year, we'll be going to the alternate dimension to train, Liamo told Qin Feng. Liamo turned to Qin Feng. We'd like to make use of this opportunity to see how many heads and arms they have. Liamo had learned quite a bit about the foreign world from the first elder. The most important of which was that the people there were generally very powerful cultivators. Even a random person on the streets was an 8th-rank blade master. In addition, there were no laws in the alternate dimension, and the only law was one's cultivation. There was no country, and all the resources were controlled by a few of the larger families. These families often fought with each other, and many people died in each battle. In short, the alternate dimension was a very cruel place. Now that Liamo had heard from the crowd, the description of the otherworldly beings was quite accurate to what he had imagined. Cruel, cold-blooded, and inhumane. It's already dark. Let's rest for the night and set off for the Spiritual Beast Valley tomorrow, Liamo suggested. All right, in that case, I'll take you there tomorrow, Qin Feng replied. After a simple meal, the group quickly fell asleep. For some reason, Yun Ruoyan suddenly couldn't fall asleep. Beside her was Haiyan. She was also tossing and turning, unable to sleep. Haiyan. Yun Ruoyan called out. Haiyan turned to Yun Ruoyan. Sister Ruoyan, what's the matter? Haiyan was a very young girl. Yun Ruoyan was already an adult, but Haiyan was only 14 years old. How did you enter the beast-taming hall at such a young age? And you don't seem to have a very high cultivation. Yun Ruoyan asked curiously. Yun Ruoyan's impression was that those who could enter the 3 halls of the 5 colleges had to be at least as strong as she was. However, none of the 16 students had a cultivation higher than Yun Ruoyan's. Beast taming is different from pill masters, forge masters, and blade masters, Haiyan explained to Yun Ruoyan. As beast-taming students, their talents as beast-taming students were revealed relatively early, and they had to start training at an early age. Almost all of the current students had been chosen to enter the beast-taming hall as soon as they entered Kongming Academy. Hai Yan's father was an instructor at the beast-taming hall, so Hai Yan grew up there. We had a few powerful seniors, but they all died in the game. My father died in the game last month, and perhaps I'll be the next to die. Hai Yan's voice grew softer and softer, and her body began to tremble. It'll be fine. Yun Ruoyan patted her comfortingly. We'll definitely bring all of you back to the academy, don't be afraid. Yes. Hai Yan turned to Yun Ruoyan, her eyes full of hope. Hai Yan, can I ask you another question? Yun Ruoyan asked. What is it? There's a lake not far from here, and there's a well-preserved wooden hut by the lake. Is that where you live together? No, Hai Yan replied. Hai Yan replied, the house was already there when we arrived, but we don't know who lived there before. Based on the decorations inside, Master Qin speculated that there might have been a couple living there, but for some reason, the couple suddenly left. Oh, is that so? Yun Ruoyan was deep in thought. Actually, when she saw that cottage, she felt that it was very familiar. She was sure that she'd seen it somewhere before, and perhaps even visited it before, but she couldn't remember when or how. Since she couldn't think of anything, she decided not to think about it. Liamo and Qin Feng were keeping watch outside the cave, and she finally fell into a deep sleep. The next day, Qin Feng instructed the remaining students to remain in the cave. Then, he brought Liamo, Yun Ruoyan, and Zhui Feng toward the Valley of Spiritual Beasts. Originally, the three of them had wanted to fly on their swords, but Qin Feng stopped them. He said that flying on a sword would cause a strange wind to blow, and that the strange wind would attack the swordsman, as if it were some sort of restriction. In short, flying on a sword was forbidden here. Since they couldn't fly on their swords, they could only rely on their feet. The four of them traveled without stopping for an entire day before finally arriving at the Valley of Spiritual Beasts, which was said to be a terrifying place, but looked like a paradise in the all-seeing mirror. Chapter 317. Under Qin Feng's lead, Yun Ruoyan's trio entered the valley. As soon as they entered, Qin Feng grew visibly nervous. He had everyone conceal their auras as much as possible, and they had to move quickly to end the battle as quickly as possible. Yun Ruoyan looked around at the vast valley of spiritual beasts. It was verdant and lush, and there were more than a dozen herbivorous beasts roaming around in search of food. If not for Qin Feng's constant nervousness, she would have thought that this was a paradise on earth. Where's the cave where the beasts and other worldly beings come from? I'd like to take a look, Yun Ruoyan asked Qin Feng. Qin Feng turned to look at Yun Ruoyan, his brows furrowed and his expression troubled. Let's find the place with the densest spiritual energy. In order to find the place with the densest spiritual energy, they couldn't completely conceal their auras. As a result, Liamo released a portion of his own aura. He injected his spiritual power into his eyes and saw that there was a place at the back of the valley that was emitting a white light. Over there, Liamo replied. That's the place with the densest spiritual energy, the best place to set up a teleportation formation. When Qin Feng saw where he was pointing, his frown deepened and his expression became ugly. He sighed and said, that is where the mysterious cave is. Although they knew that it was an extremely dangerous place, they still headed in that direction. But under Qin Feng's influence, they were even more cautious. 15 minutes later, a gigantic, ancient tree appeared in front of them. 15 to 16 people wouldn't be able to surround the tree, and there was a huge cave on the tree's body. The entrance of the cave was deep and serene, and there were thick vines crawling along its edges, obscuring the darkness inside even more. This is the cave entrance. 3 years ago, we accidentally discovered this place. My 3 instructors went in to investigate, but in the end, they were kidnapped by 3 people from another world. They killed 2 male instructors in front of us, and then took the female instructor away. Qin Feng said. The 4 of them were hiding in a shrub not far from the cave. According to what you're saying, this cave is a pathway to the otherworldly realm, Zhui Feng said. Zhui Feng said, if we go in from here, we might be able to save that female instructor. Absolutely not. Qin Feng hurriedly interrupted him. He then looked at this young man who was born like a calf who was not afraid of tigers and said, you guys have not seen their prowess before. If you enter from here, you will only be courting death. Zhui Feng did not refute Qin Feng's words, but he stubbornly stared at the entrance of the cave. Yun Ruoyan turned to Qin Feng and Liamo, we can't just sneak around like this. If we want to establish contact with the First Elder and set up a teleportation formation, there'll be a huge commotion. Stay here and don't move. I'll go take a look, Liamo said, then stood up from the bushes. I'll go with you. Yun Ruoyan stood up as well. Liamo glanced at her before extending his hand toward her, and the 2 of them walked out of the shrubbery, hand in hand. As soon as the 2 of them walked out, Zhui Feng also stood up. The 3 of you. Qin Feng saw the 3 of them walking towards the entrance of the cave, so he could only follow them. As Yun Ruoyan and Liamo walked toward the entrance of the cave, both of them could feel the dense spiritual energy gushing out of the cave. When the 2 of them injected their spiritual power into their eyes to look at the entrance of the cave, they saw white cloud-like spiritual energy continuously gushing out of the cave. As expected, this is the source of all the spiritual energy in this alternate dimension, Liamo exclaimed. Roar! Just as the 2 of them approached the entrance of the cave, they suddenly heard a high-pitched roar coming from the depths of the cave. Roar! Then, roars of magical beasts rang out one after another from within the cave. At the same time, the tremors of the earth and mountains shaking spread out from the entrance of the cave. A horde of beasts is coming out. Qin Feng cried out. As soon as he finished speaking, 2 or 3 beasts with sharp fangs and leopard markings all over their bodies rushed out of the cave. Their movements were so fast and ferocious that Yun Ruoyan and Liamo had never seen anything like this on the Qinyuan continent. Ignoring Qin Feng's warning against flying on swords, the 3 of them leapt onto their swords. Liamo took Yun Ruoyan, and Zhui Feng took Qin Feng into the air, looking down at the horde of beasts rushing out of the cave. However, in the time it took for a spark to fly off a flint, nearly 100 leopard-tattooed beasts with sharp mouths and fangs came out of the hole. Following that, a large number of sharp-horned devil antelopes came out, and the hole in the giant tree seemed to have become even bigger. After a steady stream of magical beasts rushed out of the cave, they ran in groups in all directions. Everywhere they went, the earth shook and the mountains shook. It was a complete mess. The demonic beasts that were originally in the Spirit Beast Valley were either killed, injured, or escaped from the impact. The roars and wails of the demonic beasts echoed throughout the entire Spirit Beast Valley. However, this alternate space was indeed very large. With so many magical beasts suddenly barging in, they could only cause damage to a small area and did not have a big impact on the entire space. When the number of beasts gradually decreased, Liamo turned to Qin Feng and asked, "Where's your spiritual sword?" Qin Feng cultivated earth elemental spiritual energy, and his sword was a yellow earth-attuned spiritual sword known as the Great Ravager. However, he hadn't used it in the nick of time, so Liamo asked. After saying that, he turned to the slender black hound in front of him that looked no different from a normal puppy and said, "Thunderbolt, go get me that kid with the bow." "No, Thunderbolt, bring me that girl in the red dress," the girl in the red outfit ordered. The black dog, Thunderbolt, didn't know what to do, and could only shake its tail and walk around in circles. Thunderbolt glanced at Yun Ruoyan, who was hovering in Li Mo's arms. She was an extremely beautiful girl, a beauty that was rare even in their world. Thunderbolt turned to the girl and smiled. That girl isn't bad. She should be worth quite a lot of spirit crystals in the Twilight Realm. Then, the youth turned to Thunderbolt. Bring me that girl, and I'll reward you with a blood-lingji mushroom. Black Hound Thunderbolt howled as it rolled on the ground. Then, it stood up and stomped its hind legs in the direction of Yunruoyan. Like a bolt of lightning, it flew away. Whoosh! Zhuorifeng fired an arrow at Black Hound, causing sparks to fly out from the bow in Zhuorifeng's hand. Zhuorifeng's archery had always been top-notch, and he had never missed his target. Even Li Mo had acknowledged this. Now that he was an 8th-rank blade master, the power of his arrows had doubled. Even if he couldn't kill the black dog, he should at least be able to injure it severely. But strangely, when the Black Hound saw Zhuorifeng's arrow, its lightning-fast speed actually paused for a brief moment in midair. It was this strange pause that allowed the tiger canine arrowhead to graze the Black Hound's fur and miss its target. The black dog bared its sharp fangs and bit down at Yunruoyan. Hey, Thunderbolt, don't bite through the skin, or it'll be worthless, the youth called out anxiously, but his voice was stuck in his throat the next moment. Li Mo's hand was gripping the dog's neck, and it was dangling in midair. Li Mo's hand was covered in a layer of blue ice, and there was a fang mark on it. Chapter 318. Thunderbolt. Li Mo shouted at the sky, his eyes glinting as he looked at Li Mo and Yunruoyan, who was still in his embrace. The Black Hound in Li Mo's hand was spitting out a mouthful of blood. Its tongue was hanging out of its mouth, and there was a gaping hole in its chest. When the Black Hound had pounced at Yunruoyan, Li Mo had reached out to grab it, but the hound had agilely changed directions in midair and bit down on Li Mo's arm. However, Li Mo was a peak sword saint. His powerful spiritual energy immediately seeped out of his body, and a faint blue ice crystal formed on his arm. The Black Hound bit down on the ice crystal. It didn't look particularly special, but its fangs were incredibly sharp. Even the ice crystal formed by Li Mo's spiritual energy left a deep mark on it. Yunruoyan, on the other hand, didn't hesitate to stab the dagger in her hand into the Black Hound's heart. As a result, this scene unfolded in the blink of an eye. You! The youth pointed a finger at Li Mo. How dare you kill my cloud-devouring beast? I'll bury all of you with me. You go for sure have guts, Lai Yun yelled at Li Mo and the others. How dare you fight back? You must be tired of living. What a joke. Are we just going to wait for death if we don't fight back? Zhuorifeng replied coldly. Li Mo held Yunruoyan in one hand and Thunderbolt in the other as he looked down at the youths below. Dressed in a black robe, he asked coldly, "Where did you come from?" You lowly gophers aren't fit to ask us where we come from. Prepare to die. Is that so? Li Mo replied coolly, then loosened his grip. The Black Hound fell from the sky, landing heavily on the ground. Then, the Black Hound's corpse began to transform. In the end, it turned into a rather large black magical beast. Unfortunately, it was already a dead magical beast. Just you wait. The young man looked at the corpses of the magic beasts on the ground and took out the sword on his back. He formed a sword seal and the sword let out a yellow light and floated up. The youth leapt onto the sword and rose into the air, facing off against Yunruoyan and Li Mo. Li Mo's gaze landed on the giant sword beneath the youth's feet. It seemed extremely familiar to him. Without turning his head, he asked, "Qin Feng, is the sword beneath that kid's feet your obelisk?" "Yes, that's the great ravager that was stolen from me." Qin Feng said, "Li Mo, this brat is called Splitter Yang. He's not hard to deal with. The hard one is his brother, Splitter Mountain. His brother was also a peak blade master, and was extremely powerful. Many of the barriers here were set up by him." Li Mo narrowed his eyes, then beckoned at the Thunderbolt. Thunderclap's son was already furious, and Li Mo's provocation only served to inflame him further. With a loud roar, he retrieved a snow-white spiritual sword and charged at Li Mo. Li Mo and the others had concealed their auras, and in the eyes of the youth and the girl, they were only 8th rank blade masters. When the youth charged at Li Mo abruptly unleashed his cultivation as a peak blade master. The gust of spirit energy had almost completely dissipated the youth's momentum. The spirit sword that the youth was holding stabbed into the chi wave formed by the gust of spirit energy, but was unable to move forward even a little bit. Lai Yun, who was on the ground, suddenly reacted and shouted at the youth in the air, "Thunderbolt, come back. That person's hiding his strength, and you're no match for him. Come back." Thunderbolt also reacted, but it was already too late. Li Mo raised the hand that had formed the blue crystal and extended it toward him. A blue vortex slowly formed in Li Mo's palm, and that blue vortex formed a suction force that slowly drew the youth into his palm. The girl panicked when she saw this, and with a flip of her hand, she threw a flying dagger at Li Mo. Yun Ruoyan, on the other hand, had been paying attention to the girl's movements the entire time. She quickly deflected the dagger with a fireball. She's hiding her strength as well. Lai Yun was astonished. Yun Ruoyan had been concealing her cultivation as a 5th rank blade master all this time, but now she had suddenly revealed herself to be a peak 8th rank blade master. Who are they? The girl wondered. Aren't the hamsters supposed to have low cultivations? How could one of them be a peak blade master? By now, Thunderbolt was in Li Mo's hand, just as he had the dog, and Qin Fang's sword had returned to his hand. Go back and tell Splitter Mountain to bring back our female instructor in exchange for his brother, Li Mo instructed Lai Yun. Li Mo turned to Lai Yun. Tomorrow at the latest, or I'll have him collect his brother's corpse. The girl looked up at Li Mo as she retreated toward the entrance of the cave. Just you wait. If you dare harm a single hair on Thunderbolt's head, all of the hamsters here will die. As the girl disappeared into the cave, Li Mo's group didn't linger in the valley. Instead, they hurried back. In order to save time on their way back, the group flew on their swords. The youth was tied up by Li Mo's vines and held up in his hands. As the youth cursed and pinched, Shuifeng grabbed a handful of grass from the ground and stuffed it into the youth's mouth. On the way back, they were once again attacked by the strange wind and leaves. This time, however, Li Mo's force field blocked the wind with spiritual energy. However, Yun Ruoyan discovered something strange. When the leaf had attacked, it had only attacked the 4 of them, not the youth in Li Mo's hands. As a result, Yun Ruoyan began questioning the youth. Hey! Yun Ruoyan kicked the youth. Let me ask you, why didn't the leaves attack you? The youth's mouth was stuffed with grass, and he couldn't speak. Even if he could speak, he would only curse loudly. Hey! Yun Ruoyan kicked him again, and the youth turned to glare at her, but Yun Ruoyan ignored him. After roughly 2 hours, the group returned to the cave. The dozen or so students were shocked to see Li Mo carrying a person from a different world. The youth was thrown into a corner of the cave. The students had all suffered at the hands of the otherworldly man, and they could no longer suppress the anger in their hearts. They began to beat and kick the youth. In the process, the grass in the youth's mouth fell out, and he began to curse again. You lowly creatures, stinky hamsters, how dare you treat the second young master of the Splitter family like this? I'll crush you to pieces. All right. But before we do, we'll kill you first, for the sake of our seniors and instructors. Tianfeng shouted angrily. His kicks became heavier and heavier, and the youth was soon beaten black and blue. All right, that's enough. Yun Ruoyan walked over to the angry students. Tomorrow, we're going to use him to exchange for your instructors. Don't kill him. Only then did the students stop beating the youth and disperse. Yun Ruoyan hugged her arms as she looked down at the bruised and battered youth on the ground. Tui. The youth spat out a mixture of grass and fresh blood. Stinky woman, don't think that I'll be grateful to you. When my brother comes to capture you, I'll still have to sell you. Yun Ruoyan stuffed his mouth with the grass on the ground again. That night, as they sat together for dinner, the students asked them what had happened in the spiritual beast valley. To boost their morale, Qin Feng recounted how Liemo had captured the youth. Indeed, the students were greatly encouraged, and the fear of the otherworldly man that had been hanging over their heads for so long was greatly reduced. It turned out that the people from the other world were not invincible. I'll go take a look. Yun Ruoyan whispered into Liemo's ear. She grabbed a roasted drumstick and a flask of water, walked up to the youth by the corner, and kicked him. The youth opened his eyes. Yun Ruoyan knelt down and helped him up. Then, she removed the grass from his mouth and brought the canteen to his lips. The youth first looked at Yun Ruoyan, but he didn't drink. Yun Ruoyan replied coldly, "Drink, or you'll die of thirst before tomorrow." Only then did the young man open his mouth to drink a mouthful of water. He did not swallow the first mouthful of water. Instead, he rinsed and spat out the dirt in his mouth before drinking it in big gulps. After drinking the water, Yun Ruoyan handed the roasted drumstick to him before standing up to leave. "Wait." The youth stopped Yun Ruoyan and said, "I don't owe you a favor. Otherwise, you won't be satisfied when I kill you tomorrow." Yun Ruoyan smiled at the youth, waiting for him to speak again. "The reason those leaves didn't attack me today was because I had an avoidance charm on me," the youth continued. "My brother was the one who set up the restriction on flying swords, and he was the one who made the avoidance charm for me." "Where is it?" Yun Ruoyan squatted down again and looked at the youth with wide eyes. "Show me that avoidance charm." "It's in my arms," the youth replied. "Help me loosen it, and I'll show it to you." As soon as the youth finished speaking, Yun Ruoyan reached her hand into the youth's robes and began searching. "Hey, you!" The youth's eyes widened as he looked at Yun Ruoyan, who was only a few feet away from him. "Found it!" Yun Ruoyan exclaimed happily. She took her hand out of his robes and revealed a square object folded with yellow paper between her fingers. You little rat, how dare you!" Not only did the youth's eyes widen, but he also seemed to be blushing. Yun Ruoyan held the yellow paper in her palm and glanced at the youth. "Brat, don't call me a rat. You're in our hands right now, and when we save our people tomorrow, we'll see if the students here don't skin you alive." The young man said, "There are a few who manage to endure for a certain period of time and obtain the opportunity to return to a lower plane, but those people are as rare as phoenix feathers and qilin horns." The youth's words caused Yun Ruoyan to sink into deep thought. She'd had many fantasies about the alternate world, but she'd never imagined that it would be like this. It turned out that the Qinyuan continent was just a drop in the ocean of this world. It turned out that there were many other continents like theirs in this world. In the eyes of the otherworlders, they were as insignificant as rats from a low-tier plane, insignificant creatures that could be easily killed. Yun Ruoyan's worldview had been refreshed. This world was far more complex and vast than the one she knew. "Hey, what's wrong with you? Are you scared out of your wits?" The young man smiled and said, "I advise you bunch of gophers to obediently welcome my big brother's wrath tomorrow with the attitude of a lowly creature. Maybe my big brother will be merciful and not kill you immediately. My brother loves to play games of catching people. If you can win the game by a fluke, then you can stay in the hunting ground and continue to struggle at death's door. You're the one who's living at death's door." Yun Ruoyan smacked the youth's head hard before turning to leave. Yun Ruoyan returned to Liemo's side and told him everything she had heard from the youth. She also handed the square piece of yellow paper to Liemo. Just like Yun Ruoyan, Liemo fell silent for a long time after hearing all of this. Didn't the first elder tell you about the alternate world? Yunruoyan asked Liemo. Yes, but only a small part of it, Liemo replied. He's never mentioned it in such detail. What about Mother? Didn't she tell you about it? Now that Yunruoyan was married to Liemo, she also addressed Empress Shuatong as her mother. Yunruoyan knew that Empress Shuatong was from an alternate world, but she didn't know exactly which one. Mother is from the extreme abyss continent that you mentioned. She's a holy maiden of the Silver Dragon clan, and her movements are restricted. She's never been to the extreme abyss continent, so she's not familiar with it. The extreme abyss continent is a high-class continent, and Mother said that it's sparsely populated and isn't as interesting as the human realm. That's why she found an opportunity to sneak into the Qinyuan continent to meet my father and stay here. Yunruoyan leaned her head on Limo's shoulder and closed her eyes. By now, it was already late at night, and most of the students had gone to rest. Only a few remained by the fire, chatting quietly. Just as Liemo thought that Yunruoyan had fallen asleep, Yunruoyan spoke up. Liemo, I'm a little worried about tomorrow. If that Thunderbolt Batian is really as powerful as Thunderbolt Yang says, and he's a second-level sword saint, I'm afraid we really won't be his match. Liemo patted Yunruoyan's back gently. If we really encounter any danger tomorrow, immediately activate the teleportation scroll. All right. Yunruoyan said. Liemo held Yunruoyan in one hand, and in the other, he was studying the yellow paper that Yunruoyan had taken from Thunderbolt Yang. She had heard from the First Elder and Empress Shuatong that talismans and formations were relatively high-class techniques that could only be used by cultivators who had reached the realm of Sword Saint. Such cultivators were as rare as a phoenix's feather on the Qinyuan continent, so talismans and formations were on the verge of extinction. Liemo looked at the yellow paper in his hand. It seemed that these two techniques were fairly common in this alternate world. In contrast to Yunruoyan's worries, he was very much looking forward to tomorrow's battle. It had been a long time since Liemo had fought a truly strong opponent. Just a few days before their wedding, he had gone to the Minghuang Mountains Dragon Vein again. This time, he had defeated the Silver Dragon Elder with almost no effort at all. At that time, Liemo hadn't even reached the realm of Sword Saint. Now that he desperately needed to fight against a true expert so that he could unleash his full strength. The next day, when Liemo's group of 4 brought Thunderbolt Yang to the cave that led to the alternate world, Thunderbolt Batian didn't appear. 4 people came out of the cave. Lai Yun walked in front, and 3 burly men followed behind her. Judging from their attire, they should be guards. However, the 3 of them were all peak 9th rank blade masters. Lai Yun said that Thunderbolt Batian had gone to participate in an important tournament and wouldn't be back until 3 days later. She also said that she'd already sent someone to search for the female instructor who had been sold off. The 2 parties agreed to meet again in 3 days to carry out the exchange, and within these 3 days, Liemo's side had to ensure Thunderbolt's safety, while Lai Yun's side had to guarantee that no one would step into the valley. Yunruoyan was very happy with this arrangement. In 2 days, they would be able to contact the First Elder, and if they were lucky, they might even be able to establish a teleportation array to send the 16 students back to the valley without any interference. Thunderbolt Yang, on the other hand, was living a life worse than death. Every single one of the 16 students hated him to the core, and if not for Yunruoyan holding him back, who knew how many times he would have been beaten every day. When the students saw that Yunruoyan was protecting Thunderbolt Yang, they began to recount the youth's various crimes, such as having his Black Hound drive magical beasts to destroy the home they had worked so hard to build. For example, he had injured one of the students and arrogantly mocked them in a game of manhunting. Chapter 320. You seem quite close to that black-robed man. What's your relationship with him? Thunderclap asked as Yunruoyan turned to leave. Husband and wife. He's my husband, Yunruoyan replied without turning around. In the dead of night, Yun Ruoyan slowly drifted off to sleep in Li Mo's embrace. In her daze, she seemed to hear someone calling her name. Ruoyan, Ruoyun. The voice was very familiar. It was none other than her mother, Lin Yuemei. Yun Ruoyan stood up in a daze and looked in the direction of the voice. Mother, mother. Yun Ruoyan searched for her mother amidst the white fog. Mother, where are you? In the blink of an eye, Yun Ruoyan had passed through the white fog and arrived at a valley. Under the bright moonlight, there was a small house next to a sparkling lake in the valley. Yun Ruoyan felt a sense of familiarity. Wasn't this the valley that they had arrived at when they had first entered this alternate dimension? Yun Ruoyan walked toward the hut, and when she finally got close to it, the sense of familiarity grew even stronger. Yun Ruoyan felt as if she had been here before, not when she had first entered this alternate dimension. Just then, a voice came from within the hut. Long Yin, do you think they'll find this place? Yun Ruoyan recognized the voice as her mother's. She hurriedly walked forward, but the door wasn't closed. Yun Ruoyan stepped inside. Then, she saw Lin Yuemei lying on the bed, her complexion not looking too good. Meanwhile, the man she called Long Yin was feeding her a bowl of steaming rice mouthful by mouthful. I don't know either, Long Yin replied. Although this alternate dimension is well hidden, it's not impossible for them to find it. Long Yin stopped what he was doing and turned to Lin Yuemei. Yuemei, if you're afraid, I'll send you back to the Qinyuan continent. They won't dare to attack you on the Qinyuan continent. No. Lin Yuemei immediately sat up and said excitedly, Dragon Cry, I want to be with you. As long as I can be with you, I'm not afraid of anything. As Lin Yuemei spoke, she grabbed Long Yin's hand and placed it on her belly. And our daughter, Yin, our family of 3 will be together forever, in life and in death. A sudden gust of wind blew past, and Yun Ruoyan felt an icy chill on her face. She reached out to touch her face, only to find that she was crying. Yuemei, this is for you. Long Yin took out a silver bracelet and placed it in Lin Yuemei's hands. What a beautiful silver bracelet. Lin Yuemei turned the bracelet over and over in her hands, allowing her to clearly see what it looked like. Yun Ruoyan looked at the bracelet on her wrist in shock, then stepped forward to look at Lin Yuemei's bracelet. Only then was she sure that the silver bracelet was the one she was wearing on her wrist at the moment. This isn't an ordinary bracelet, Long Yin explained to Lin Yuemei. How so? Is there something special about it? Lin Yuemei asked doubtfully. Liemo gently stroked Yun Ruoyan's hair and rested his chin on top of her head. He didn't say a word, only quietly listening to her. Liemo, Yun Ruoyan finally raised her head. Come with me somewhere, right now. The sky was still dark, and the two of them arrived at the lakeside cottage. Now that she was back in this cottage, the place where her parents had once lived, her feelings were vastly different from the first time she had come here. Liemo, I came to this place in my dream, Yun Ruoyan said as she stroked the dusty bed. Yun Ruoyan stroked the dusty bed. When I first saw this room, it felt very familiar, but I just couldn't remember where I'd seen it before. Now that I think about it, I've been here in my dreams, and this is where my parents used to live. Where your parents used to live? Liemo couldn't help but be suspicious. Why would official Yun bring Madam here? Not my father from the Yun Manor, Yun Ruoyan continued, but my own father. Yun Ruoyan smiled, not the slightest bit afraid. I'm curious, though. How many eyes does this godlike fellow have? Roar! As soon as Yun Ruoyan finished speaking, a black-furred, slender, dog-shaped magical beast ran out of the cave. This must be Pai Lai, Thunderbolt's father, the magical beast that Thunderbolt had mentioned. Indeed, the two beasts looked exactly the same. Because she had seen the cloud-devouring beast in its true form, Yun Ruoyan didn't dare to treat it as an ordinary dog-like beast, as she had seen Thunderbolt for the first time. Following behind the magical beast was Lai Yun, who was dressed in red, followed by a blue-robed man with a head full of red hair and a devilish appearance. Behind the man were 3 muscular warriors. Their attire was exactly the same as the warriors in the dream. When Yun Ruoyan saw the red-haired man, her heart trembled. She clearly remembered that this was the red-haired man who had barged into the cottage in her dream. Who's he? Yun Ruoyan suddenly pointed at the man, her voice so loud that Liemo, Shuifeng, and Thunderclap all turned to look at her. He's my brother, Thunderbolt, Thunderbolt replied. He's a second-rank blade master. Hurry up and let me go, lest my brother gets angry and makes all of you die horribly. Even if we die horribly, we'll make sure to make you our scapegoats. Shuifeng turned back and glanced coldly at Thunderbolt. By this time, 8 of the students had already passed through the formation, and the remaining 8 were about to pass through. It would take time for the 8 of them to pass through the formation. What do we do? Qin Feng asked Liemo. Continue. Liemo looked at the group of people walking out of the cave. We'll hold them off until all the students return. Liemo walked forward, and Yun Ruoyan handed Thunderbolt to Shuifeng. She and Liemo walked side by side, while Shuifeng followed behind with Thunderbolt. The 2 of them stood some distance away from each other, facing each other. Thunderbolt, are you all right? Lai Yun asked Yun Ruoyan and the others. Yun Ruoyan and Liemo took 2 steps to the side, revealing Thunderbolt, who was being held captive by Shuifeng. Not dead yet, Thunderbolt replied, craning his neck. Where's the person we're looking for? Yun Ruoyan asked, her gaze landing on the blue-robed Thunderbolt Batian standing behind Lai Yun. Thunderbolt Batian's seductive face remained expressionless as he extended his hand and gestured to the few burly men behind him. A woman walked out from behind the burly man. Her hands, feet, and neck were all shackled. Her face was haggard and she looked haggard. Her clothes were tattered to the point that they barely covered her body. Behind the woman was a warrior, who pushed the woman along the way, causing her to stagger. Lan Ning. Qin Feng's voice came from behind, agitated and angry. Liemo, she's my female instructor, Lan Ning. What did these beasts do to her? I'm going to kill them. Liemo, Shuifeng, Yun Ruoyan, and the remaining students were also infuriated by the female instructor's description. I've brought the person you're looking for, Lai Yun began. Release Thunderbolt now. You guys let our people come over first. Shuifeng tightened his grip on Thunderclap, and with a loud crack, Thunderclap let out a muffled groan. How dare you! Lai Yun shouted at Shuifeng. You've injured our man so badly that I'd like nothing more than to break his arm. Shuifeng growled. Release our man now. Don't doubt me. If you try anything funny, I'll kill him. As soon as Shuifeng finished speaking, Thunderbolt groaned once more. Yun Ruoyan saw that one of Thunderbolt's arms had already been deformed by Shuifeng's grip. Thunderbolt gritted his teeth and didn't make a sound. We'll release him first. Thunderbolt Batian finally spoke. His voice wasn't loud, but it reached everyone's ears. Yes, Master. The burly man who was holding Lan Ning unlocked the shackles on her feet and pushed her forward. Lan Ning staggered a step forward, then walked towards Shuifeng and the others step by step. Master, those hamsters are using a teleportation array to escape, one of the burly men whispered to Thunderbolt Batian. Thunderbolt Batian took out a red handkerchief from his sleeve and wiped his hands. So what if they're escaping? They're just a bunch of insignificant beasts. Keep an eye on the 3 in front, or I'll skin them alive. No, leave that woman for me. Thunderbolt Batian pointed at Yun Ruoyan. She's worth more than this. I don't do business that's a loss. Yun Ruoyan and Li Mo's gazes were constantly on Thunderbolt Batian. Naturally, they hadn't missed him when he pointed at Yun Ruoyan. Yen, follow behind me, and don't act rashly. Li Mo could sense that Yun Ruoyan seemed to hate Thunderbolt Batian, and he was afraid that she would act rashly. They've all been sent away. At this moment, Qin Feng walked up from behind. He held the gigantic saber in his hand and stood together with the three of them. Master Qin. Only then did Liaoning see Qin Feng. Her eyes, which seemed to have dried up, were filled with tears. Liaoning. Qin Feng called out. He walked forward, put away his sword, and took off his outer robe. Liaoning, I'm sorry I didn't protect you well enough. However, just as Qin Feng was about to reach Liaoning, Pai Lai, the sky-swallowing beast behind her, suddenly leaped forward like a bolt of lightning. Its original canine form instantly transformed into a gigantic, pitch-black beast with a mouth full of sharp teeth. When Qin Feng saw this, he threw down the robe in his hands, pulled out his sword, and slashed at the sky-swallowing beast behind Liaoning. Zhuifeng was holding on to Thunderbolt, so he couldn't attack. As for Li Mo, he appeared between the sky-swallowing beast and Qin Feng in a flash of green light. At the same time, the sky-swallowing beast spat out a huge ball of flame towards Qin Feng and Zhuifeng. Li Mo was already in front of Qin Feng. He pushed out his palms, and an ice shield appeared in front of him, blocking the ball of flame. Split up. A burly man by Pai Baishan's side commanded. The other three burly men behind him charged towards Yun Ruoyan, Zhuifeng, and Qin Feng with a flash of sword light. It seemed as though each of them wanted to deal with Yun Ruoyan's group in one fell swoop. When Lai Yun saw this, she took out a flying dagger and was about to shoot it out, but Pai Batian stopped her. Miss Lai, you're a guest of the Pai family. How could we allow you to kill these lowly rats? Wouldn't it be more interesting if we just stood here and watched the show? When Lai Yun saw Pai Baishan's luxurious red robe and his hands behind his back, she said, but Thunderbolt is still in their hands. Chapter 322. Teach him a lesson, so that he won't be so impulsive in the future, Lei Batian said indifferently. On the other side, Yun Ruoyan, Zhuifeng, and Qin Feng had already begun fighting with the three burly men. Yun Ruoyan took out her scarlet eye spirit sword, which she wielded in her hand. In addition, her movements were extremely nimble, and she attacked from afar or at close range. For a moment, the burly man, whose cultivation was higher than Yun Ruoyan's, wasn't able to gain an advantage over her. On the other side, Zhuifeng had his bowstring looped around Lei Yang's neck, controlling him in his hands. With Lei Yang as a shield and the jade cord spirit sword in his hand, Zhuifeng didn't look like he was going to lose. The only one who was struggling was Qin Feng. In the past 3 years, his cultivation had improved very little. Furthermore, Juk had just returned to his hand, so he wasn't 100% proficient in using it. As a result, after a dozen or so exchanges with the burly man, whose cultivation wasn't lower than his, he gradually began to show signs of strain. Li Mo was still fighting with the heaven-devouring beast. Surprisingly, the heaven-devouring beast's cultivation had also reached the realm of consummate, and all of the flames it spat out were spiritual flames. Of those present, only Li Mo's ice shield could withstand the flames. For those with lower cultivation than the heaven-devouring beast, Yun Ruoyan and the others would most likely be devoured by the flames in an instant. Li Mo, Qin Feng can't hold on any longer. When Yun Ruoyan saw Qin Feng, who was being forced to retreat step by step while fighting with the brawny man, she couldn't help but anxiously shout out. Li Mo had also noticed this, and just as he was looking at Qin Feng, the burly man suddenly used his other hand to shoot an icicle at Qin Feng. At this moment, Qin Feng was using Juk to block his opponent's slash, and he couldn't do anything about the icicle attack. All he could do was watch as the icicle shot toward his head. Retreat! At this moment, Liemo suddenly let out a low growl as he pushed the ice shield in his hands toward the heaven-devouring beast. The sudden burst of power clearly shocked the heaven-devouring beast. The sky-devouring beast howled as it was knocked back by the ice shield. In that split second, Liemo released a fireball at the 5 icicles that were shooting toward Qin Feng. Liemo's fireball was much faster than the icicles, and in the blink of an eye, it had enveloped all 5 icicles. When the burly man saw that a fireball had appeared out of nowhere and melted his icicle, he subconsciously turned to Liemo. Just as he turned his gaze over, 2 slender icicles accurately pierced into his eyes. Before he could let out a howl, the sturdy man's body fell to the ground with a bang. This scene shocked Lai Yun, who was watching the show. There, a blue figure stood quietly. Lan Ning looked at the demon-like figure and stopped breathing. Lan Ning, Lan Ning. Qin Feng called Lan Ying's name loudly, but Lan Ning could no longer give him any reaction. Qin Feng's gaze followed Lan Ying's and landed on Lei Badian. Brother Tian, what happened to that woman? Lai Yun asked Lei Badian in confusion. Dead. Lei Badian said indifferently. In this world, those who want to threaten me must die, not to mention a group of rats from a low-level continent. After Lei Badian finished speaking, he took out the exquisite red handkerchief and carefully wiped his fingers. It turned out that when Lan Ning was brought into this passage, Lei Badian gently touched her body. At that time, she didn't feel anything at all. However, she didn't expect that at that time, Lei Badian would actually inject his overbearing spiritual energy into Lan Ying's body. It was only now that the spiritual energy had reached her heart meridian and destroyed it. Lei Badian. Qin Feng looked at Lei Badian with bloodshot eyes. The scene of him being bullied by him in the past appeared in his mind. 2 male teachers were beaten to death by his subordinates. The rest of the teachers were also killed by them in the human hunting game. Now, Lan Ning also died in his hands. Qin Feng felt the hatred in his heart as if it was going to burst out of his chest. In the past, in order to protect the lives of the 16 students, he didn't hesitate to live like a coward. Now, all 16 students had been sent away. Qin Feng no longer had any worries. Looking at Lan Ying's unreconciled appearance, the hatred in Qin Feng's heart that filled his chest could no longer be suppressed. He gently put Lan Ning on the ground, then stood up. He pointed the great ravager in his hand at Lei Badian and said fiercely, "If I don't kill you, I'm not a man." Chapter 324. Liemo, are you alright? Yun Ruoyan couldn't help but panic when she saw Liemo vomiting blood. Liemo shook his head weakly, closed his eyes, and fainted. The 2 of them carried Liemo to the first elder's training room. The first elder fed Liemo a spiritual pill, then infused spiritual energy into his body to treat his wounds. After an entire day and night, the healing process finally came to an end. Yun Ruoyan checked on Liemo and found that his pale face hadn't improved much. First elder, how's Liemo? Yun Ruoyan asked the first elder, who seemed much older than before. I used spiritual energy to protect his heart meridians, but the person who injured him cultivates a very strange spiritual technique. The spiritual energy I infused into Liemo's body is circulating erratically, and I can't quite grasp it. The first elder frowned at Yun Ruoyan. I've protected Liemo's heart meridians, but I can't guarantee that he'll be fine in the future. Ruoyan, what kind of expert did you encounter? Hearing the first elder's words, Yun Ruoyan's heart was filled with anxiety and worry. She forced herself to calm down and told the first elder about their experiences in the alternate dimension. You actually encountered Pai Badian. The first elder was clearly shocked by Yun Ruoyan's words. From his tone, Yun Ruoyan could tell that he seemed to know this Pai Badian. First elder, do you know this Pai Badian? Yun Ruoyan asked. Not only do I know him, I've even fought him before. The great elder said, at that time, he injured me to the point where my life was hanging by a thread. It wasn't easy for me to escape. So when the first elder had first entered the alternate dimension, he had encountered Pai Batian and had suffered greatly at his hands. Yunruoyan couldn't help but ask, and the first elder began to tell her about a painful past that he had never mentioned to anyone else. Back when the first elder had entered the alternate dimension, he had entered the Pai family's territory. The people of the alternate dimension were very disdainful of those who entered from the lower continents, and the Pai family was the most prominent of them all. The great elder had said that it didn't matter how high one's cultivation was, or how high one's status was in the deep abyss continent. Once they were on the dark abyss continent, they would be nothing more than the lowliest of slaves. According to Great Elder Dark, anyone who entered a different world had the status of a slave and did the most lowly things that slaves did. This was also the reason why Great Elder, Yunlan, and the others who came back from a different world never took the initiative to mention a different world. Every single one of them had an extremely high status on the Qinyuan continent. Getting them to talk about their experiences as slaves was sometimes even more difficult than killing them. The great elder said that his first job was to raise horses in the Pai clan stables. In Yun Ruoyan's eyes, Liemo had always been a relatively strong presence. Apart from the first time they had met, when he had been severely injured, this was the first time Yun Ruoyan had seen him injured. Yen, it's all thanks to you treating my wounds this time. Otherwise, I really would have died. Liemo stroked Yun Ruoyan's hair. Yun Ruoyan asked curiously, I treated your wounds. She suddenly remembered that Liemo had said that he needed her help to treat his wounds, and then he had pounced on her. Could this be what he was referring to? As soon as Yun Ruoyan thought of this possibility, Liemo spoke up. Yen, there's something I've always wanted to tell you, but I've never had a suitable opportunity. Actually, there are times when there's a chance, but I don't know how to tell you. What is it? Why don't you know how to tell me? Liemo's words had aroused all of Yun Ruoyan's doubts. She sat up and looked at him. Because I'm afraid, Liemo replied honestly. I'm afraid that you'll get angry and leave me. Yun Ruoyan couldn't help but laugh at Liemo's serious expression. Your Highness, is there really something that you're afraid of? In the past, I wasn't afraid of anything, but that's because I didn't care about anything. Now that I care about something, I'm naturally afraid. Liemo's tone and expression were both serious. Yun Ruoyan leaned back on Liemo's shoulders and looked at his chiseled, jade-like chin. I'm yours now. What are you afraid of? You're mine now. Liemo sighed, as if a heavy burden had been lifted from his shoulders. He wrapped his arms tightly around Yun Ruoyan. You once said that you didn't want any secrets between us, and you've already told me all of your secrets. Naturally, I shouldn't hide anything from you. Even if you'll get angry, I'll tell you everything. But you have to promise me that if you're angry, you can hit me or yell at me, but you're not allowed to leave. Yun Ruoyan frowned. What could it be that Liemo was so serious about? Could it be that he had other women besides her? If that was the case, it really wouldn't be something that could be resolved with just physical abuse. Just as Yun Ruoyan was deep in thought, Liemo began, Yen, I actually had a motive for getting close to you. Yun Ruoyan's train of thought was interrupted. Motive? What motive? Yun Ruoyan clearly remembered that when she had first met Liemo, she had still been the pitiful, ugly second miss of the Yun family. She was neither favored nor beautiful, so what motive could Liemo have for getting close to her? Because I want your body. Liemo looked at Yun Ruoyan, his hand resting on her smooth, slender shoulder. His icy blue eyes seemed to burn with a fire. Hearing Liemo's words and seeing his expression, Yun Ruoyan couldn't help but blush again. Li Mo's next words, however, were completely out of her expectations. I don't want your body because I've fallen in love with you at first sight. In fact, I didn't fall in love with you at first, Li Mo continued. Li Mo continued, I want your body because you have a cauldron constitution, and your body will be of great help to my cultivation. Yun Ruoyan froze. This was the first time she had heard of a cauldron constitution, and she needed some time to process it. Cauldron constitution. What's a cauldron constitution? Yun Ruoyan asked. Li Mo didn't hold back at all as to what a furnace physique was, as well as its advantages and disadvantages. Those with a cauldron constitution not only have extremely high talent for cultivation, but they also have a unique advantage when faced with bottlenecks in their cultivation. This constitution also has a certain degree of resistance to poisons. The fact that you were able to survive and retain your cultivation after being poisoned by the broodmother parasite has a lot to do with your constitution, Li Mo continued. Not only that, but if you can cultivate with someone with a cauldron constitution, you'll be able to help them break through their bottlenecks and advance their cultivation. Li Mo told Yun Ruoyan that, before he had learned of Yun Ruoyan's cauldron constitution, he had been a 9th-rank blade master for 2 years, but he had been unable to break through. As a result, when he found out that she was a cauldron, he couldn't help but think of cultivating with her. Li Mo hugged Yun Ruoyan even tighter. The slaughtering king, who had always been fearless, was now most afraid that Yun Ruoyan would suddenly go berserk. In that case, you broke through to become a peak blade master on the night of our wedding night. Yun Ruoyan didn't go berserk, nor did she go berserk. Instead, her tone was surprisingly calm. Yes, Li Mo replied. I'd been accumulating spiritual energy for nearly 3 years, but I hadn't been able to break through. The moment I joined hands with you, all of my spiritual energy gushed out like a flood, breaking through my bottleneck and advancing from 9th rank to a peak blade master. In that case, did you recover from your injuries because of my physique? Yun Ruoyan asked. Yes, Li Mo replied. I didn't expect your constitution to be able to help me recuperate. The spiritual energy that Thunderbolt Batian sent into my body was extremely domineering, and while I was unconscious, I tried to force it out of my body, but I wasn't a match for it. But when you kissed me, when your body neared mine, the weak spiritual energy in my body suddenly grew stronger. Li Mo looked at Yun Ruoyan's expression. She had only been shocked at first, but now she was as calm as ever. But the more she was calm, the less confident Li Mo felt. If she had been a little more agitated and questioned him on why he had lied to her, or coldly accused him of lying, Li Mo would have found it much more normal. Since Yun Ruoyan didn't ask any questions, Yun Ruoyan could only explain herself. At first, I was worried that this would harm your body, and that if you felt even the slightest discomfort, I would stop immediately. But I found that you didn't feel any discomfort at all. In fact, you seemed to be enjoying it. When Yun Ruoyan heard Li Mo's words, she turned away. I've kept it from you. As long as you can forgive me, I'll let you do whatever you want to me, but I won't let you leave. No matter what, you're already my consort, and no matter what, you'll always be my consort. Yun Ruoyan didn't respond for a long time. Finally, she asked, Li Mo, when did you start liking me? The first time I was attracted to you was at the flower viewing party. You had an ugly face, but you exuded the aura of a peerless beauty. At that time, I felt that you weren't as simple as you seemed. Then, in the lake in the Phoenix Orchard, I saw your true face, and I almost had you. Li Mo's words stirred up Yun Ruoyan's memories. When Li Mo mentioned the flower viewing party and the lake in the Phoenix Orchid Forest, the face of a devilish man suddenly appeared in front of Yun Ruoyan's eyes. Yun Ruoyan suddenly struggled to sit up in Li Mo's embrace. So that man was you. It seemed as though he had never spoken so much in his entire life. By the time he was done, Liemo felt more tired than if he'd killed 10 beasts in a row, but his heart was incomparably relaxed. Liemo could deceive everyone in the world without batting an eyelid, and even his mother, Empress Shuetong, hadn't been able to completely see through him. But when he faced Yun Ruoyan, the woman he loved with his life, deceit and honesty suddenly became incomparably difficult for him. Liemo looked at Yun Ruoyan, as though waiting for her final verdict. Yun Ruoyan was also looking at Liemo, the man with whom she had bowed to heaven and earth, the man with whom she had spent an entire night together, and the lover with whom she was currently naked. He looked at her with the gaze of a child, his love unreservedly conveying to Yun Ruoyan through his eyes. Yun Ruoyan couldn't help but feel her heart soften. She had experienced a painful life, and she knew what was more important to her. Compared to what had happened in the past, she valued the present and the future even more. Liemo, Yun Ruoyan finally gave Liemo a response. Liemo immediately leaned closer to Yun Ruoyan, his icy blue eyes staring unblinkingly at her as he waited for her to continue. Do you remember what I said to you before? If you betray me, I'll never see you again. I remember. Liemo's eyes flashed as he looked at Yun Ruoyan, a sense of panic he had never felt before. All right, I'll repeat myself. Liemo, from now on, if you betray me again, we'll never see each other again. Yun Ruoyan emphasized each word. Liemo stared at Yun Ruoyan for a long while before finally reacting. He placed his hands on her shoulders and asked, Yen, do you mean to say that you won't blame me for hiding the fact that you're a human furnace? Yun Ruoyan nodded, then shook her head. Finally, she sighed. When I first heard about it, I was really angry. I don't think any woman would be willing to become a human furnace. But after thinking about it, I don't think I can blame you. If I were you, when I met someone with a human cauldron physique that could help me cultivate, I would have the same thought and put it into action, so this is not your fault. As for why you didn't tell me about this earlier, I can only say that it's fortunate that you hid it from me when I wasn't deeply in love with you. Otherwise, I really can't guarantee that I wouldn't have left you in a moment of impulse. But what should I do now? I like you so much that I can't even bear to be angry with you. Yun Ruoyan had to admit that it wasn't easy to be angry with Liemo's breathtakingly perfect face. Yun Ruoyan sighed helplessly. Liemo, if you hadn't betrayed me first, I'm afraid I wouldn't have been able to part with you. Yen, that's what I wanted to say to you. Liemo finally relaxed and pulled Yun Ruoyan back into his embrace. Only then could the two lovers truly treat each other with sincerity. Deep in her heart, Yun Ruoyan was actually quite thankful that she had a special constitution as a furnace. If not for it, Liemo wouldn't have been able to see her in the sea of people around her. If she didn't have such a special constitution, she would only be able to watch as Liemo suffered such a grievous injury. Perhaps the heavens had given her this special constitution so that she could be together with Liemo, just as the heavens must have given her some sort of mission when she was reborn. The first elder had determined that Liemo's injuries were fatal, so when he came out of seclusion after 2 days and 1 night, he couldn't help but be surprised to see Liemo standing in front of him, perfectly fine. However, he quickly recalled what Liemo had told him about Yun Ruoyan's constitution, and he immediately understood what was going on. That's good. The first elder patted Liemo's shoulder. He had been wondering how he should tell Empress Shuetong about Liemo's injuries, but that problem had been solved. At first, Yun Ruoyan was worried that the first elder would ask too many questions, and she was prepared to take her leave. However, the first elder didn't seem interested in Liemo's recovery, and Yun Ruoyan couldn't help but sigh. Ruoyan. The first elder suddenly turned to Yun Ruoyan. Excuse me for a moment, I have something to say to Liemo. Yun Ruoyan nodded, glanced at Liemo, and walked out. Master, what's the matter? Liemo asked. Since the first elder had sent Yun Ruoyan away, there had to be something he wanted to tell her that he couldn't let her know about. I have something to tell you, the first elder suddenly said mysteriously. The first elder's tone suddenly turned mysterious. It's not that I'm intentionally avoiding Ruoyan, but it's more appropriate for you to speak to her alone. After about 5 minutes, Liemo finally emerged from the first elder's training room. Let's go. Liemo immediately pulled Yun Ruoyan out of the southern tower. Where are we going? Yun Ruoyan asked once they were out of the southern tower. To your cottage by the cliff. A green light flashed beneath Liemo's feet, and he soared into the air with Yun Ruoyan in tow. Yun Ruoyan looked down from her sword and saw that quite a few students had already gathered in the academy grounds. The holidays had ended without her noticing. Yun Ruoyan raised her head and saw that not far away, dozens of swords were piercing through the clouds and stopping in the plaza of Kongming Academy. Those were the students that her seniors had picked up from the bottom of the Kongming Mountains, those who were too weak to fly on their swords. Yun Ruoyan also saw a few familiar figures among the swords, Zhuari Feng, Lin Qingxue, and Lin Qingchen. Lin Qingchen was being carried by a senior, while Lin Qingxue was standing on Zhuari Feng's sword. Chapter 327. Yin is female, Yang is male, Yin and Yang dual cultivation. As the name suggests, Liemo couldn't help but smile when he saw Yun Ruoyan's blush. You and I are already husband and wife, Yen. You don't have to be so shy. Yun Ruoyan cleared her throat and pretended to be calm. I'm not shy. It's just that I've heard that dual cultivation doesn't seem to be an orthodox method, and I just can't help feeling shy. Meeting Liemo's burning gaze, Yun Ruoyan thought back to last night's events and blushed again. She lowered her head. Yen. Liemo held Yun Ruoyan's small hand in his own. Evil is just a general term used by the Orthodox to refer to those who oppose it. As long as it's not evil, it can't be called evil. Yun Ruoyan agreed with Liemo's statement. After all, the distinction between good and evil lay in one's heart. When we're together, your physique is of great benefit to me. But although it doesn't harm you, it doesn't help you much either. I've glanced over this dual cultivation method, and it's clear that Yin and Yang complement each other. The fusion of ice and fire will surely allow both of us to advance in cultivation. Seeing that Yun Ruoyan didn't give a clear response, Liemo continued, we'll be heading to the alternate dimension in less than 2 months' time. Once we're there, the first thing we need to do is rescue Qin Feng from the Li family. Fighting against the Li family won't be an easy task, and we'll need sufficient strength. Only when both of us are strong will we be able to reduce our worries. When the two of them had first met, Liemo's desire for Yun Ruoyan to become stronger was partly selfish. Only when Yun Ruoyan's cultivation was high enough would she be able to dual cultivate with him. Later, when Liemo fell in love with Yun Ruoyan, he actually didn't want her to become too strong, because he was confident that he could protect her and become her pillar of support. However, the events of last night and the past few days had changed Liemo's mind. Liemo knew that Yun Ruoyan wasn't a woman who was willing to live under a man's wings, even if that man was her husband. Moreover, their opponents were getting stronger and stronger. Liemo had a feeling that, against stronger opponents, Yun Ruoyan would be able to display strength that would shock even him. As for Yun Ruoyan, Liemo had told her more than once to rely on herself, that she wouldn't have to live such a tiring life. But this was the first time she'd heard him encourage her to become stronger. Yun Ruoyan finally looked at Liemo, her shyness turning into seriousness. Ever since her rebirth, she had never wavered in her determination to become stronger, and she would continue to work hard to achieve that goal. When will we start cultivating? Yun Ruoyan looked at Liemo. Almost instantly, the blush on her face disappeared, replaced by a determined look. Liemo couldn't help but laugh at her serious expression. Yen, if you're in a hurry, we can start cultivating right now. Li Mo's words instantly shattered Yun Ruoyan's serious expression. She glared at Li Mo angrily. To outsiders, this man was like a block of ice, but in front of her, he couldn't be serious at all. Ha! Li Mo laughed out loud. He reached out and lightly flicked Yun Ruoyan's forehead. Today's the first day of classes at Kongming Academy, and in a moment, we'll all be attending a lecture in the plaza. After that, there'll be a meeting of the elders to discuss the next 2 months of training, as well as what we should pay attention to when we venture into the alternate dimension. At night, your 2 sisters, who haven't seen you in days, will surely come looking for you. Li Mo explained everything to Yun Ruoyan in detail. We'll probably be busy until nightfall, and when it's quiet, be good and wait for me in your room. Although they were husband and wife, they were still master and disciple at Kongming Academy. Furthermore, Yun Ruoyan felt that the academy was a place for cultivation, not a place for public displays of affection. As a result, she had suggested to Li Mo that they not act as husband and wife in public. Li Mo actually didn't agree with Yun Ruoyan's suggestion. Why would they hide the consort they'd finally married? They didn't need to care about what others thought of them. This was true in the capital, and it was also true in Kongming Academy. However, Li Mo chose to respect Yun Ruoyan's request before she was ready. The large bell in the plaza rang, and Yun Ruoyan and Li Mo left the cottage by the cliff and arrived at the plaza. By the time they arrived, almost all of the students were already present. Yun Ruoyan walked into the Southern College's procession, while Li Mo walked toward the only empty chair on the dais. Sister Ruoyan. When Lin Qingxue and Lin Qingchen saw her, they both greeted her happily. Sister Ruoyan, I went to visit you after your wedding, but you weren't here anymore. Lin Qingxue grumbled to Yun Ruoyan, Sister, now that you've got a brother-in-law, you've completely forgotten about us. How could you just leave like that? I'm so heartbroken. Lin Qingchen didn't say anything, but she looked at Yun Ruoyan, who was also trying hard not to laugh. Yun Ruoyan reached out and knocked Lin Qingxue on the head. Sister Ruoyan, what are you doing? Lin Qingxue frowned. I'm greeting you, of course. Yun Ruoyan smiled. In order not to upset you, I'll greet you every day. Come on, don't do that. Lin Qingxue exclaimed. Yun Ruoyan nodded at the students she was familiar with, then looked around her. She saw that the 16 students had formed another procession and were standing in front of the rest of the students. Yun Ruoyan wasn't the only one who had noticed them. Lin Qingxue, Lin Qingchen, and many of the new students had also noticed them. These 16 students are from the Beast Taming Hall, so the elders have decided to reopen the Beast Taming Hall. Senior Tsang Song, why don't I see Manager Qin? A male instructor standing at the front of the procession asked. He used to be a member of the Beast Taming Hall, but he'd only been transferred to the Beast Taming Hall after it closed. That's right, where's Manager Qin? Some of the older students also asked. That's what I'm going to tell everyone next. Tsang Song gestured for the crowd to be silent. Manager Qin is temporarily unable to return to the academy due to some matters, so Rong Tianzong and I will be temporarily replacing him as the head of the Beast Taming Hall while we await his return. Ruoyan, do you know what's going on? Why isn't Manager Qin back with the rest of the students? And if I recall correctly, there were more than 16 students in the Beast Taming Hall, as well as 5 to 6 instructors. As a veteran of Kongming Academy, Zhong Yang had always been privy to many things, so he had many questions. This matter is a little complicated, and I'll explain in detail later. Yun Ruoyan could only brush him off for the time being. After Tsang Song's announcement, he began to upgrade the nameplates that were held once a semester. Kongming Academy's nameplates were divided into 5 grades: red, yellow, azure, blue, and purple. This time, the nameplates would be upgraded based on the students' progress in cultivation. Yun Ruoyan was one of the few new students to become an 8th rank blade master in a single semester, and her nameplate was immediately upgraded to blue. Chapter 328. When the blue light shone on Yun Ruoyan's identity token, the students around her couldn't help but let out gasps of surprise. In Kongming Academy, blue was already the highest grade one could possess. Above blue was purple, which was rare even among the instructors and students of the 3 halls. As a result, blue was considered one of the higher grades in Kongming Academy. Apparently, those with a blue identity token don't even have to pay to eat in the capital's restaurants, one of the students commented enviously. Not just that. Have you heard of the Uelu Villa's Immortal abode? There's a private room there reserved for those with a blue identity token. Even members of the imperial family don't get to enjoy such treatment. Another student clicked his tongue. And with a blue identity token, you'll be treated like a VIP even in other countries. When will I ever be able to get a blue identity token? Stop dreaming. I'm afraid we'll never get that chance in this lifetime. At first, it was only the students from the Southern College who cried out in surprise, but the cries soon spread to the Northern, Western, and Central colleges. When Pei Zio and Rong Yuashan saw that the dazzling blue light was emanating from Yun Ruoyan's body, their eyes were first filled with disbelief, then hatred. Both of them were talented and hardworking. Pei Zio practically didn't leave his residence during the holidays. Accompanied by his father, Pei Yingxiong, he cultivated diligently every day and managed to reach the peak of a 7th-rank blade master in the span of a single holiday. He had thought that he would be able to catch up to Yun Ruoyan in this way, but what he didn't know was that Yun Ruoyan had already broken through to 8th rank by the time she returned from the forest of giant trees. Although Rong Yuashan wasn't as diligent as Pei Zio, the second elder favored her greatly, and Rong Tianzong was related to her by blood. Both of them had taught her without reservation, so Rong Yuashan had reached the peak of 7th rank before Pei Zio. However, there was a bottleneck between 7th rank and 8th rank, and it wasn't so easy to break through it. This was a well-known fact among cultivators. As far as the two of them knew, Yun Ruoyan's cultivation had stagnated at this stage for a long time, so they assumed that she would be stuck there for at least 2 or 3 years. That way, the two of them would have ample time to catch up. However, to their surprise, Yun Ruoyan's cultivation had already broken through the peak of the 7th rank and reached the 8th rank during the holidays. How could she have broken through so quickly? Rong Yuashan's face was filled with shock. On the other hand, Pei Zio couldn't say a single word. Compared to Rong Yuashan, Pei Zio understood Yun Ruoyan more thoroughly. It wasn't as simple as Yun Ruoyan breaking through the bottleneck of a 7th rank blade master in a short period of time. Pei Zio thought back to more than a year ago, when she was still a punching bag in the Yun family, an ugly girl who would blush at the slightest provocation. In a daze, Pei Zio felt as if she weren't a human at all. This wasn't the first time he had experienced such a daze. Over the past year, Yun Ruoyan had surprised him so many times that he couldn't even count them all on his fingers. Pei Zio had a feeling that he would never be able to catch up to Yun Ruoyan. This thought also appeared in Rong Yuashan's mind, but it was only for a fleeting moment. She quickly found a reason to calm herself, the slaughtering king, Liamo. As far as Rong Yuashan knew, Yun Ruoyan had only changed after meeting Liamo. The slaughtering king must have fed her some sort of spiritual pill that allowed her to advance so quickly. She wasn't as surprised as she had been when she thought of this. After all, there wasn't much to be said about an expert who had accumulated a large amount of spiritual pills. Although the slaughtering king was a formidable figure on the Qinyuan continent, the Rong family wasn't far behind. If Yun Ruoyan could afford to consume spiritual pills, then so could Rong Yuashan. As a result, Rong Yuashan made up her mind that she would cultivate with a large amount of spiritual pills. She refused to believe that she wouldn't be able to catch up to Yun Ruoyan with a large amount of spiritual pills and the careful guidance of her two masters. Look, there's another blue rank student over there. Just as everyone was immersed in their shock at Yun Ruoyan's cultivation, a student suddenly pointed in the direction of the central college. All of the students, including Yun Ruoyan, turned in the direction of the central college. It's Brother Zhua, it's Brother Zhua. Lin Qingxua shouted excitedly. The student who had advanced to the blue rank like Yun Ruoyan was none other than Zhui Feng. That beastkin brat's also an 8th rank blade master? How is that possible? Pei Xiao couldn't remain calm any longer. Rong Yuashan was the same. If Yun Ruoyan had broken through with Li Mo's help, then what about Zhui Feng? He certainly wasn't as lucky as Yun Ruoyan to have Li Mo as her backer. However, Rong Yuashan was also an extremely intelligent person. She firmly believed that it was impossible for them to break through to the 8th rank on their own at their age. As a result, she guessed that Yun Ruoyan and Zhui Feng must have obtained some sort of treasure that would allow them to break through in their cultivation. Rong Yuashan's guess was correct. Yun Ruoyan and Zhui Feng had indeed broken through because of a heavenly spirit fruit. However, that heavenly spirit fruit was something that Rong Yuashan wouldn't be able to obtain in her lifetime. Ha ha ha, our central college is finally going to have a blade master, ha ha ha. The person who laughed was the 6th elder of the central college. He had long known that Zhui Feng was an 8th rank blade master, but he had kept it a secret all this time, waiting for the day when he could slap the other elders in the face in front of all the students. The 6th elder couldn't hide his excitement. He stood up from his seat and laughed heartily at the other elders. Elders, it's really not easy for me to groom an 8th rank blade master from a student that none of you wanted. Even I have to admire myself for my hard work. The 6th elder was famous for not doing things by the book, and being humble had nothing to do with it. In the past, he had shamelessly tried to think of ways to get his students to advance in rank, only to be ridiculed behind his back. This time, however, he had finally obtained a student who had advanced through his own efforts. How could he not show off in front of everyone? 6th junior, you seem to have forgotten. The 3rd elder couldn't bear to watch the 6th elder's smugness any longer. If I remember correctly, this Zhui Feng wasn't rejected by any of our academies. Rather, he was transferred from the 1st elder's southern college to the central college of his own volition. The fact that his cultivation has improved so quickly can only mean that it's because of his own abilities, and it has nothing to do with you, 6th junior. 3rd elder, I don't like what you're saying. The 6th elder panicked. Why did my disciple transfer from the southern college to the central college? Wasn't it because he liked me as his master? Oh, I understand. The 3rd elder smiled. Are you saying that the southern college isn't as good as the central college, and that the 1st elder isn't as good as you, 6th elder? I didn't say that. The 6th elder glared. 3rd elder, what do you mean by that? All right. Just then, the 1st elder stood up. This time, 2 new students actually managed to break through to 8th rank in just one semester. Regardless of which faculty you are from, I'm extremely gratified. Tsang Song. The 1st elder turned to Tsang Song. When the elders' meeting is over, have Yun Ruoyan and Zhui Feng stay behind. Since they're already 8th rank, they'll be able to train with spiritual swords. Have them come with me to a secret chamber to choose a sword that suits them. Once all of the new students had advanced, the opening ceremony was over. The Lin sisters were now 7th rank blade masters. Lin Qingchen was a mid-7th rank blade master, while Lin Qingxua had just become a 7th rank blade master. Pei Xiao, Rong Yuashan, and the Lin sisters were both green rank blade masters. Most of the new students were still stuck at yellow rank. After all, they'd only been in the academy for a semester, and only a few of them had managed to advance by leaps and bounds. After Tsang Song announced the end of the ceremony, the students were led by their instructors to their respective colleges. Chapter 329. The first elder didn't directly answer the second elder's question, only nodding calmly. If we make up for these 30 students this time, then it is very likely that there will be more losses in the following trials. At that time, will we need to find even more outstanding students to fill in the gaps? The second elder continued to ask. This time, his tone already carried an extremely obvious interrogative tone. Precisely. The first elder looked at the second elder. This has always been the rule for the otherworld trials every 3 years. You should all be aware of it. We all know about this rule, but why did the number of people increase from 10 to 20? And now, in just a short period of a year, the number has increased to 30. Haven't you ever raised this question to your superiors, great elder? The second elder questioned coldly. The second elder's northern college had lost the most students in the giant tree forest, and even his own grandson had been sacrificed. Furthermore, according to past conventions, the college that had lost students should be replaced by another one. Faced with such a situation, it would be strange if the second elder wasn't anxious. With the second elder taking the lead, the other elders, who had always had their own opinions, immediately began to chime in. It wasn't easy for us to carefully select our elites from the various kingdoms of the Qinyuan continent, but in such a short period of time, they're going to be sent to the other world to be trampled on like meat being cut off. The fifth elder sighed. Regardless of whether they're of low or high cultivation, once they're sent to the other world, there's a slim chance of survival for those with high cultivation, while those with low cultivation are practically sending themselves to their deaths. However, I can't possibly send the elites of our college there, the third elder added. This was why the students chosen to participate in the otherworld trials weren't the elites of the 3 institutions, but only the students of the 5 colleges. That's right, first elder, can you discuss this with your superiors? This time, it's still 20 students. Next time, give us 30 more. At this time, even the usually carefree 6th elder showed great reluctance. The few elders kept on grumbling non-stop. Their words were heard by the 19 students sitting on the periphery, and they couldn't help but reveal doubtful expressions. Wasn't going to the otherworld something that everyone looked forward to? Why did the elders all look so reluctant? From the elders' tone, they could tell that venturing into the otherworldly realm was a perilous affair, but the path of cultivation was often fraught with peril. For example, many had died during the first selection to enter Kongming Academy, and many had died during this trial in the giant forest. In that case, it was not a big deal that people would die in the otherworld. As long as there was enough reward, even if there was a risk, everyone was willing to take the risk. Therefore, everyone was even more puzzled by the elders' agitated complaints. After their trip to the alternate dimension, Yun Ruoyan and Zhuo Yifeng had gained some understanding of the situation in the alternate dimension, so they could understand why the elders were so excited. Kongming Academy's students were all elites from large families, and if they were to be sent to an alternate dimension, they would be the lowest of the low. Most nobles would rather be killed than humiliated, but in an alternate dimension, as long as you weren't strong enough, you would be oppressed and humiliated. Perhaps even if you were strong enough, you would always be inferior to others simply because you came from a lowly continent. Elders and chosen students, the first elder finally spoke. The great elder finally opened his mouth to speak. His gaze swept across all the elders and the surrounding students. Venturing into the otherworldly realm is a tradition that dates back 1,000 years, and it's not something we can control. I'm sure all of you are aware of this fact. The few elders sitting here were all outstanding people who had returned from the otherworld. How could they obtain true gold without being roasted in raging flames? If they did not go through the baptism of mud, how could they comprehend what was noble and unsullied? I don't think I need to elaborate on this. Bargaining with a superior is like fighting against a heavenly punishment. It's all in vain, unless one day your cultivation reaches the level of a superior. Before that, we have no choice but to obey his orders. The great elder's words silenced the entire conference hall. The great elder then turned his gaze to the students sitting at the back and said, "Students, we haven't been able to tell you the details of the otherworld's true situation. There are still 2 months before we enter the otherworld. Taking this opportunity, the elders and I will tell you the details of the otherworld situation so that you can prepare in advance." Then, with the great elder taking the lead and the other elders supplementing, the general situation of the otherworld was finally introduced to everyone. What they described was basically the same as what Liemo had learned from the lightning bolt. There were no nations in the alternate dimension, only a few powerful families. However, it was clear that the elders were still holding back a little. For example, they were known as gophers in the alternate dimension, and if they wanted to survive, they would first have to obtain a job, which was often to become a family slave. The elders didn't reveal any of these details. Instead, they emphasized the dangers and challenges of the alternate dimension in order to encourage the students not to cower. After that, they began to discuss how they would fill in the remaining 9 students. Shui Feng, wait a moment. I have something to say to you. He had only taken a few steps when Yun Ruoyan's voice rang out from behind him. Chapter 330. Just as Shui Feng was about to return to the academy, Yun Ruoyan suddenly called out to him. He turned around, and just as Yun Ruoyan was about to speak, she was interrupted by another voice. "Brother Zhua, Sister Ruoyan." The two of them looked in the direction of the voice, only to see Lin Qingxue, Lin Qingchen, Zhong Yang, and another unfamiliar male student walking towards them along the path. "Qingxue, Qingchen, Senior Zhong Yang, what are you doing here?" Yun Ruoyan asked when the 4 of them walked up to her. "Brother Zhua, your shield's really pretty." Lin Qingxue looked past Yun Ruoyan and at Zhui Feng. "I just got it, and it's really pretty," Zhui Feng replied coolly. "Can I touch it?" Lin Qingxue walked past Yun Ruoyan to Zhui Feng's side. Zhui Feng lowered his shield, allowing Lin Qingxue's small hands to caress it. She couldn't help but sigh in admiration, as if no one else was around. Yun Ruoyan became more and more worried when she saw Lin Qingxue like this. Lin Qingchen glanced at her sister and shook her head. "Senior Tsang Song told us to come here. He said that the first elder wanted to see us." "The first elder wants to see you." Yun Ruoyan immediately had a bad premonition. During the elders' meeting, the first elder had mentioned that he would be selecting 4 students from the Southern College to fill up the list of students heading to the alternate dimension. Could it be the Lin sisters, Zhong Yang, and the other 2? Junior Yun, Junior Zhua, will be heading in first. "It wouldn't be nice to keep the first elder waiting," Zhong Yang called out. "Sister Ruoyan will be heading in first." Lin Qingchen held Lin Qingxue's hand as they followed Zhong Yang and the other male student toward the southern tower. "Brother Zhua, Sister Ruoyan," Lin Qingxue said as she turned around. "I'll come visit you when I'm free." "Wait a moment." Yun Ruoyan caught up to the Lin sisters. "I'll go with you," Yun Ruoyan said, then turned to Zhui Feng. "I'll come to the Central College to find you." Zhui Feng nodded slightly, then turned toward the small path leading to the Central College. Yun Ruoyan followed the Lin sisters and Zhong Yang's group into the southern tower. "You're here." The first elder had just sent Li Mo out and welcomed them at the door. "The 4 of you, follow me." The great elder turned around and walked inside. The Lin sisters, Zhong Yang, and the other 3 followed closely behind him. Yun Ruoyan glanced at Li Mo before following after him. Li Mo didn't say a word as he followed behind Yun Ruoyan. "Sister Ruoyan, do you know why the first elder has summoned us?" Lin Qingchen asked in a small voice when she saw that Yun Ruoyan had suddenly followed her, her expression serious. Yun Ruoyan didn't answer Lin Qingchen's question directly. Instead, she muttered to herself, "I hope it's not what I think." After entering the meeting room, Yun Ruoyan subconsciously stood in front of the Lin sisters. The first elder's gaze lingered on her for a moment before he asked everyone to sit down. The southern tower was the sacred land of Kongming Academy, and this was the first time the Lin sisters and the other three had entered it. The four of them sat ramrod straight, unable to conceal the curiosity and anticipation on their faces. There had to be a reason why they had been invited here. I've summoned you all here today because I have an announcement to make. The great elder looked at them with a cautious look in his eyes. Some time ago, 9 of the students who were selected to participate in the alternate world trial were lost during the training. Therefore, we need to transfer students from the various academies to make up for these 9 spots. The 4 of you will be the students I've chosen to fill in the remaining 9 spots. First Elder. Yun Ruoyan stood up as soon as the first elder finished speaking, but the first elder gestured at her to stop her from speaking. Sit down and let the first elder finish. Liemo patted Yun Ruoyan's back. Suppressing her anxiety, Yun Ruoyan sat down. In contrast to Yun Ruoyan's anxiety, the Lin sisters, Zhong Yang, and the other male student were all excited, as if they had been struck by a pie that had fallen from the heavens. There's a lot of danger in the expedition, the first elder continued. You can choose not to go. Let's go. Before the first elder could finish, Lin Qingxue stood up agitatedly. Yun Ruoyan was sitting right next to Lin Qingxue. She reached out and tugged at Lin Qingxue's arm. Qingxue, it's not fun to go to the alternate dimension. Neither you nor Qingchen should go. Why? Lin Qingchen and Lin Qingxue asked in unison. Because it's dangerous, Yun Ruoyan replied. We know, the first elder told us about it. Lin Qingxue's smile didn't waver. But as long as I'm with you and Brother Zhua, I'm willing to brave any danger with you. That's right, Sister Ruoyan. From the imperial territory until now, we've been through quite a bit of danger together. Qingxue and I believe that as long as we're with you, we'll be able to overcome any danger. Lin Qingchen seemed to have also made up her mind to go to the expedition. It's different this time, Yun Ruoyan said anxiously. In the past, we've only faced magical beasts on the Qinyuan continent, as well as other students like us. This time, however, we'll be facing humans and magical beasts from another world, and the dangers and difficulties we'll face are unimaginable. Junior Ruoyan, how can cultivators like us be afraid of danger? Where there's danger, there's opportunity. Zhong Yang, who had always been optimistic, also spoke up. As an old student of Kongming Academy, I've heard a little about the expedition. It's said that 80 to 90% of those who go there don't return. Some stay behind, while others die. However, those who do return are all top-notch cultivators on the Qinyuan continent. This is both an opportunity and a challenge. I thought that I wouldn't be able to go, but I didn't expect to have another chance. But Yun Ruoyan still wanted to persuade him, but Lin Qingxue cut her off. Sister Ruoyan, Sister Qingchen and I have both grown up and have the ability to protect ourselves. Why don't you let us go with you? Lin Qingxue tugged on Yun Ruoyan's arm and whined. Sister Ruoyan. Lin Qingchen also came over. Apart from the few of you who've already been chosen, only Qingxue and I have the highest cultivations among the new students of the Southern College. If we don't go, there will be other students with lower cultivation who must go. Won't they be in more danger? Yun Ruoyan couldn't refute Lin Qingxue and Lin Qingchen's persuasion, but apart from the fact that the expedition was an extremely dangerous place, Yun Ruoyan had another concern. In order to enter the expedition, one had to be at least an 8th rank blade master, and those who didn't would have to rely on spiritual pills to advance their cultivation. Consuming those pills would likely mean that they would forever remain an 8th rank blade master. I have 8 spirit gathering pills here, which are extremely effective for breaking through bottlenecks. They were made from 4 heavenly spirit fruits I obtained from the expedition, the first elder began. Take these 4 spirit gathering pills first, and they'll help you quickly increase your spiritual energy in a short period of time. Take the other 4 a month later. All of you, except for Zhong Yang, who's already an 8th rank blade master, are at 7th rank. With 2 spirit gathering pills each and 2 months of training, it's not impossible for you to break through to 8th rank. The Lin sisters, Zhong Yang, and the other 3 were all delighted to see the first elder take out such precious pills. Most cultivators would need 3 to 4 years to advance from 7th rank to 8th rank, and those who weren't particularly talented might even be stuck there for the rest of their lives. How could they not be excited that the 4 of them would be able to break through so soon after becoming a 7th rank blade master? Yun Ruoyan saw that the first elder had even taken out a heavenly spirit fruit, and she had no reason to object. Zhong Yang and the other male disciple excitedly took the pill from the first elder's hands, opened it, and swallowed it without hesitation. Sister Ruoyan. The Lin sisters looked at Yun Ruoyan anxiously and expectantly. Faced with their pitiful gazes, Yun Ruoyan finally nodded. The Lin sisters immediately took the pill from her and swallowed it as well. The pill will release its effects in about an hour, so you should all return to your rooms and prepare to cultivate, the first elder instructed the 4 youths. Once they left the southern tower, Zhong Yang and the male student returned to their respective lodgings. Yun Ruoyan instructed Lin Qingxue to cultivate in Lin Qingchen's bamboo garden, and she would stand guard over the 2 of them. Liamo indicated that Yun Ruoyan had something to say to her, and Yun Ruoyan had the Lin sisters leave first. What's the matter? Yun Ruoyan asked Liamo. Liamo sighed, looking rather reluctant. I'd planned to dual cultivate with Yen tonight, but Mother suddenly sent me a message. It looks like we'll have to postpone our plan to tomorrow. Yun Ruoyan couldn't help but giggle at Liamo's playful tone and expression, and her heavy heart seemed to lighten considerably. That's how you should laugh, my little consort. Liamo cupped Yun Ruoyan's face with both hands and comforted her. Although the alternate world is cruel and dangerous, it's also a place full of opportunities. With the 2 of us protecting you, I'm sure you'll be able to ensure the safety of your sisters. Yes. Yun Ruoyan placed her small hands on Liamo's large ones, feeling his warmth. Come back soon. I'll wait for you in the cottage, and please send my regards to Mother. Chapter 331. Alright, I'll be back as soon as possible. I won't keep you waiting for too long. Liamo suddenly bent down and pecked Yun Ruoyan on the lips. Yun Ruoyu hesitated for a moment before looking around anxiously. This was the Southern Tower, the sacred grounds of Kongming Academy, and it wouldn't be good if someone saw them. But Liamo laughed loudly, as if he were a mischievous child. A green light appeared beneath his feet, and he flew into the sky. Yun Ruoyan watched as Liamo's figure disappeared into the sea of clouds before heading to Lin Qingchen's bamboo garden. When Yun Ruoyan arrived, the Lin sisters were chatting in the yard. When they saw Yun Ruoyan walk in, they waved at her, as if they had something to tell her. What's the matter? Yun Ruoyan walked toward the 2 sisters. Aren't the 2 of you preparing to start cultivating? What are you doing? Sister Ruoyan. Lin Qingxue had always been a quick-witted talker, and she spoke before Lin Qingchen could. Sister, you brought Whitey with you. No, it should be called Whitey now. What? Yun Ruoyan was shocked. You brought Whitey with you? Where? As she spoke, she looked around the bamboo garden but couldn't find a place to store little White. Here. Lin Qingchen raised a hand toward Yun Ruoyan. On her hand were 2 rings, one of which Yun Ruoyan recognized. It was an ordinary spatial ring. The other was simple and unadorned, and Yun Ruoyan found it very familiar. After staring at it for a while, Yun Ruoyan finally remembered that she had seen this ring on her grandfather's hand when she was very young. Is this the spatial ring that grandfather gave you? Although Yun Ruoyan was certain of her guess, she still couldn't help asking. Yes, it's the Lin family's ancestral spatial ring, Lin Qingchen replied. Grandfather passed it on to me. The Lin family was a family of pillmakers, and they naturally had to deal with all sorts of magical beasts when it came to pill-making. This spatial ring was something that the Lin ancestors had spent a great deal of effort to obtain, and it was specifically designed to store living creatures. Little White is in this ring. Lin Qingxue replied, Sister Ruoyan, it's been a long time since you've seen Whitey, hasn't it? It's grown so big now, and it was just making a fuss about coming out of the ring. Let me see. Yun Ruoyan stretched out her hand and gently placed it on Lin Qingchen's spatial ring. She injected a strand of spiritual energy into the ring, and then her consciousness entered the spatial ring. The space within the spirit ring was similar to the space within the bracelet. Yun Ruoyan walked around in a blurry circle, searching for Whitey's whereabouts. Qingchen, why can't I see Whitey? Yun Ruoyan used her psychic energy to ask Lin Qingchen. After a while, Lin Qingchen replied, I don't know. My psychic energy isn't strong enough to enter the ring, but Whitey is in the ring. Try calling its name. Just as Yun Ruoyan was about to call for Whitey, a loud splashing sound reverberated through the air. In the darkness, a snow-white, silver dragon-like body suddenly appeared in front of Yun Ruoyan. Less than 3 steps away from Yun Ruoyan was a large pool of water, and Whitey was hiding there. Yun Ruoyan remembered that the last time she saw Whitey in the Lin Manor, it was already in the form of a giant python. This time, it was much larger than the last time she saw it. In the darkness, if Yun Ruoyan didn't know that it was a snake, she would have mistaken it for a silver dragon. What shocked Yun Ruoyan more than Whitey's body were its 2 eyes. Its previously adorable eyes were now as large as 2 large copper bells, but these bells were black and glossy. At this moment, these 2 eyes were staring unblinkingly at Yun Ruoyan, giving her an indescribable, strange feeling. Whitey, do you still remember me? Yun Ruoyan stretched out her hand to Whitey. After hesitating for a while, Whitey finally moved closer to Yun Ruoyan. And just as Whitey was about to touch Yun Ruoyan, the pair of demonic eyes hidden deep in Yun Ruoyan's mind suddenly opened. Whitey, who was slowly approaching Yun Ruoyan, immediately shrank its head back, as if it had been electrocuted. Then, its 2 bell-like black eyes looked at Yun Ruoyan even more suspiciously and vigilantly. Whitey, don't you recognize me? Yun Ruoyan saw Whitey's reaction and was rather disappointed. That shouldn't be the case. It's only been a few months. It seems that the saying that snakes have short memories is true. But as long as you remember your master, you'll be fine. In the future, you have to protect your master well, understand? After Yun Ruoyan finished speaking, she opened her eyes and pulled out the strand of mental energy from the spatial ring. How is it? Whitey has become bigger, hasn't it? Lin Qingxue asked Yun Ruoyan. Then, she stretched out her pinky and gestured, it was only this big back then. I don't know what you fed it, but it changed every day. In just a year, it's grown so big that even the pond can't hold it. Even my silver carp doll shudders at the sight of it. Yun Ruoyan frowned and looked at Lin Qingxue. Don't tell me you brought that crying and laughing catfish with you. That catfish doll had originally been kept in the pond in Lin Qingchen's courtyard, but because Lin Qingxue was afraid of Whitey, she had brought it back to her own courtyard. Ha ha. Lin Qingxue laughed sheepishly. I didn't want to bring it along, but it's too lonely in the Lins. When I come home for the new year, it doesn't even smile, only cry. I'm afraid that it'll get depressed, so I decided to keep it by my side. At first, Lin Qingxue had hated and even feared the catfish, but suddenly, she didn't hate it anymore. Now, she was even bringing it to Kongming Academy. You're not planning on taking it to another world, are you? I'm afraid that it'll get even more depressed. No, It only knows how to laugh and cry. Why would I take it with me? Lin Qingxue said. I entrusted it to a friend to help me take care of it. As soon as Lin Qingxue finished speaking, she furrowed her brows and clutched her abdomen. I feel something hot in my stomach. I feel it too, Lin Qingchen chimed in. The spirit-gathering pills taking effect. Hurry up and cultivate. I'll protect you. Yun Ruoyan hurriedly urged. The three of them hurriedly entered the room. The Lin sisters sat cross-legged on the same bed, and Yun Ruoyan watched over them by the side. Yun Ruoyan had prior experience with the heavenly spirit fruit, and she knew that if she didn't absorb the spiritual energy released by the fruit in an appropriate manner, the spiritual energy would rampage through her body, and she would be in danger of going berserk. Although the heavenly spirit fruit had already been refined, and the overbearing spiritual energy within it had been significantly reduced, the Lin sisters still spent a great deal of effort to absorb and refine it. Finally, with Yun Ruoyan's guidance and help, after an entire night, the two of them finally managed to refine all the spiritual energy released by the heavenly spirit fruit. By this time, the sky was already beginning to brighten. Lin Qingchen was the first to open her eyes, awakening from her cultivation. Sister Ruoyan, I feel like I'm just a little bit away from becoming an 8th rank blade master. Lin Qingchen looked at Yun Ruoyan with bright eyes. She had already been a peak 7th rank blade master before, and after eating that heavenly spirit fruit, her cultivation had advanced even further. Sister Ruoyan. Lin Qingxue also woke up. She looked at Yun Ruoyan with wide eyes. I think I'm at the peak of 7th rank now. Although I've only just reached it, this rate of improvement is incredible. Apart from excitement, Lin Qingxue also found it hard to believe. In the past, she'd had to spend a great deal of time and energy to advance a rank, but now, she'd advanced a rank in the span of a single night. This is the wonder of a sage-rank spiritual herb, Yun Ruoyan exclaimed. Yun Ruoyan couldn't help but sigh. She'd been stuck at the peak of 7th rank for several months, but a single heavenly spirit fruit had allowed her to break through to 8th rank. As a result, she had experienced firsthand the miraculous effects of this type of spiritual fruit. She and Li Mo had expended a great deal of effort to obtain a single heavenly spirit fruit in the forest of giant trees, but the first elder had managed to obtain 4 of them in this alternate dimension. It seemed that this alternate dimension was truly a land of treasures. It seemed that bringing the Lin sisters with her wasn't without its benefits. Thinking about it this way, Yun Ruoyan felt relieved. After an entire night of cultivation, all 3 of them were exhausted. Lin Qingxue slept on Lin Qingchen's bed, while Yun Ruoyan returned to her own cottage by the cliff. What Yun Ruoyan wanted most right now was to soak in a hot bath to relieve her fatigue, but she didn't know where to get hot water in the middle of the day. Fortunately, she was too tired to care about her discomfort. As soon as she laid down on the bed, she fell asleep. When Yun Ruoyan woke up, she found herself wrapped in a firm, warm embrace. As she turned her head bumped into Li Mo's chin. You're awake, Li Mo's voice rang out. When did you come back? I didn't feel anything at all. Yun Ruoyan snuggled deeper into Li Mo's embrace, and her stomach began to growl uncontrollably. She couldn't remember how many times she had complained about her hunger in front of Li Mo, and she had gone from embarrassed at the beginning to calm down. I'm so hungry. Yun Ruoyan clutched her stomach. Guarding a disciple is indeed a tiring task, Li Mo laughed. What would you like to eat? I'll have the cafeteria prepare it for you. I want to eat meat, all kinds of meat, Yun Ruoyan replied unreservedly. All right, just you wait. Li Mo stood up, and with a flash of sword light, he disappeared out the window. Oh, prepare some for Qingchen and Qingxue as well. Yun Ruoyan hurriedly added, unsure if Li Mo had heard her. A few moments later, Li Mo reappeared in front of Yun Ruoyan and pulled her out of bed. Let me sleep a little longer, just a little longer, Yun Ruoyan murmured. Get up first. I'll show you something. I guarantee you'll be so excited that you won't be able to sleep. Chapter 332. What is it? Yun Ruoyan's drowsiness was instantly dispelled by Li Mo's words. She stood up from the bed, and Li Mo casually picked up a robe from the bedside and draped it over Yun Ruoyan. Yun Ruoyan and Li Mo sat facing each other at the table. Under Yun Ruoyan's curious gaze, Li Mo finally took out a book from his pocket and handed it to Yun Ruoyan. Yun Ruoyan could only see that it was a yellowing book that looked rather ancient. She took the book from Li Mo, and just by looking at the cover, she felt a sense of familiarity. As Yun Ruoyan flipped through the pages of the book, she remembered everything. She had once obtained a wordless book from the wild vine spirit nest in the imperial territory, and the book she was reading now was almost identical to that one. The only difference was that this one had words, while the other one didn't. The Divine Dragon Technique. Yun Ruoyan read out the words on the back of the book, then turned to Li Mo questioningly. My mother gave this to me, Li Mo replied. Ever since she found out that you possessed the demonic dragon bloodline, she's been searching for a suitable cultivation technique for you. This divine dragon technique was something she spent a great deal of effort to obtain. This technique is called the Divine Dragon Technique. Does it have anything to do with dragons? Yun Ruoyan asked. Li Mo nodded. According to my mother, this technique was left behind by the demonic dragon clan after its demise, and it's not something that just anyone can cultivate. It can activate the demonic dragon's power within your body, allowing your cultivation to far exceed that of a normal human. My mother said that the Silver Dragon clan also has a similar technique, but it can only be read by a clansman of the clan after they reach adulthood. She came to the Qinyuan continent before she did, so she wasn't able to see it. Yun Ruoyan flipped through the manual as quickly as she could, only to find it extremely difficult to understand. I don't understand, Yun Ruoyan replied honestly, closing the book. Don't worry, Li Mo encouraged. A high-level technique like this has to be learned step by step. Even if you don't fully understand it, just understanding a little of it will be immensely beneficial. As the two of them were talking, someone knocked on the door. Senior Sister Yun, your breakfast is here, an in-named disciple said from outside the door. Coming. She was just about to stand up when Li Mo beat her to it. It was a fact that the two of them were husband and wife. Even if they didn't flaunt their affection in public, there was nothing wrong with them having a private meal together. Deep down, Yun Ruoyan was still a rather conservative girl. Although she didn't care too much about what others thought of her, she still couldn't compare to Li Mo's calm demeanor. Master Mo, this is the food you ordered for Senior Sister Yun. When Li Mo turned around, he saw Yun Ruoyan staring at him in confusion. How was it this time? Li Mo asked. I understood about an eighth of it, Yun Ruoyan replied. But when I closed my eyes and tried to recall, I found that my mind was completely blank, as if I'd forgotten everything I'd just read. It's so strange. There must be something strange about this technique, Li Mo replied. You're already very tired today. Eat something, and then rest. Li Mo took the book from Yun Ruoyan's hands and stuffed it back into his robes. Now, eat something, and then we'll begin our dual cultivation. Ah. Only then did Yun Ruoyan wake up from her dazed state. She looked at Li Mo with a dazed expression. It's not a good day for dual cultivation, is it? Of course, Li Mo couldn't bear for Yun Ruoyan to dual cultivate with him when she was so tired, and he was only teasing her. After Yun Ruoyan's meal, Li Mo prepared hot water for her bath. Yun Ruoyan sat in front of the table, propping her head up on her elbow as she stared at Li Mo's back as he added water to her bath. On the entire Qinyuan continent, anyone who saw the slaughtering king add water to a woman's bath would surely find it unreal, even if that woman was his wife. Yun Ruoyan stood up from her chair and walked toward the side room. Liamo turned around when he heard her footsteps behind him, only to find a petite body in his embrace. Yun Ruoyan's cat-like body wasn't well behaved, and she kept squirming in Liamo's wide embrace, as if Liamo had hidden something delicious in his clothes and she was going to dig it out. Yen, if you keep this up, I won't be so polite anymore. Liamo tried to coax Yun Ruoyan to behave for a while, but he failed. Her nose rubbed against his chest, tickling him all the way to his heart. The steam rising from the bathtub enveloped the two of them, and Yun Ruoyan finally lifted her face from Liamo's chest. However, she couldn't see Liamo's face clearly in the steam, and she found it all the more surreal. She reached out and touched Liamo's face. If you're going to be so polite, then so be it. Yun Ruoyan murmured as she stroked Liamo's face. Her voice was soft, and her eyes were alluring as they met Liamo's gaze through the steam. Yen, I'm afraid I'll tire you out. Liamo's voice was starting to grow hoarse. I don't know why, but my brain feels a little tired. Yun Ruoyan frowned, her tone soft. I feel a little dizzy, but my body isn't tired. I feel like everything around me isn't real, and even you aren't real. I want to do something that will make me feel like both of us are real. All right. Liamo only had time to say a single word before the fire that had been ignited by Yun Ruoyan burst forth uncontrollably. He leaned down and kissed Yun Ruoyan. At first, he was afraid of hurting her, so he only kissed her lightly. However, Yun Ruoyan, who was usually shy when it came to intimacy, stood on her tiptoes and kissed Liamo fiercely, her entire body clinging to Liamo's like a vine. With a thump, the two entwined bodies collapsed into the large tub behind them. Liamo couldn't help but think back to the lake in the Phoenix Orchid Forest, when he had first seen Yun Ruoyan's true appearance. How breathtaking had he been! Her hair and face were wet, and her petite body was even more delicate than the petals of a phoenix. She was as soft and beautiful as a flower bud swaying in the wind, waiting for him to pluck her. Liamo, Yun Ruoyan clung to Liamo tightly, calling his name over and over again. She was completely immersed in the pleasure of being a fish in water. Meanwhile, Liamo forced himself to remain clear-headed. He activated the dual cultivation technique in his mind, and spiritual energy began to seep out of his body. A white glow of spiritual energy slowly enveloped Yun Ruoyan's body, enveloping her as well. The two of them were enveloped by Liamo's spiritual energy, like silkworms waiting to break out of their cocoons. At the same time, in a secret chamber in the Beast Palace, the first elder was standing in front of Empress Xuetong's sculpture. The dual cultivation technique and the Great Dragon technique have both been given to Sun Imo. Giving them to Sun Imo is equivalent to giving them to Yun Ruoyan. Empress Xuetong's cold voice echoed throughout the chamber. The first step of the plan has been completed. The dual cultivation technique can indeed increase the spiritual energy of both parties, but where did this Great Dragon technique come from? The first elder asked Empress Xuetong. You're tuning into the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.